Okay, we're going to call our Select Board meeting to order. It's Monday, 23rd of July, 6:07. We're coming to order, and the first item on the agenda is the affordable housing. I notice you've put a draft policy procedure for us together, and you've taken in the recommendations that you talked about last time, put some values on that you talked about. So you want to walk us through this and then and how you see this proceeding?
Okay.
I don't know who I'm looking at you, but
Yeah, Peter's the author of this document.
Okay.
The rest of it we've given some input and reviewed and feel like it does do an adequate job of incorporating the specific findings of the group. We can certainly walk you through it.
Yeah, I would call him not an author, but just a drafter. I mean, this is a collaborative,
Yep.
the product of a collaborative effort.
So the first section, just background, I think is facts that we believe are accurate in the first paragraph. The second paragraph is more subjective and attempts to incorporate or summarize what the goals and purposes of the original program were. And the conclusion of the last sentence of that second paragraph, we're hoping is optimistic enough, but containing a bit of critique to drive the rest of the revisions of the policy itself. So, for instance, the financial penalties for non-compliance and use restrictions prevailed in perpetuity. In the middle of that paragraph, that's really kind of the heart of what we think you should look at revising in order to make this a more heavily subscribed program.
which is what we've talked about. And
Yeah.
so you said,
Telling people if you don't do this, it's going to cost you, and this is forever. So in the policy section paragraph, that's the drive there is to, as the second sentence says, greater flexibility and less onerous requirements. Top of the second paragraph under policy changes is also significant in that we would think you should explicitly say nonprofit housing organizations are welcome and should see this as an opportunity that is being offered. And on the private owner side, again, we think it's significant and important to say perpetuity is not necessarily a requirement. And we really think that would make a big difference.
in other words, the word you're saying is grants can be repaid without penalty if situations change, you said.
Yeah, or at least penalties that are less strict and less painful. You know, to Matt's point, maybe a one by one or one-off analysis of a proposal where an applicant could say, I can afford to do it this way.
So when you're looking at the town and you're saying how many affordable units there are in town, and somebody goes through this process, they're in this process, so we know that that's an affordable place, or at least recognize that as being an affordable place. Once they've done the 5 years and they do a payoff or whatever, and they get out of it, how do we know which ones are affordable and which ones aren't in town without somebody reporting it? I mean, just say that this person gets out of the program after 5 years, but it's still affordable.
That would be a success, I think, in our view, depending on
Okay, but now you don't have the affordable units in town.
but
If it goes out of affordability. If it goes out of affordability, you don't have that unit in town anymore. So So now your number of affordable units has gone down. I mean, I agree that if they stay within the numbers and it falls within the affordability, it can still be counted as an affordable place in town. But if it falls out of that description, then it's, how does the town rectify these numbers?
Well, I guess I would first just back up to the first statement you made, which is you suggested that we know how many affordable units there are at a given point in time. Is that what you mean?
Right. How do we know that, first of all?
I don't know, but we don't see that as our role to tell you those kind of specific numbers. If that's information that the board feels like it needs to know, then I guess you should take action to do an analysis of that. But we don't see that as within our mandate to give you that kind of hard data.
Can I make just a quick comment that later on in the document, it does say that the nonprofit housing agencies that get involved would have to maintain affordability into perpetuity. And the history so far is they have that actually produced the most units today, and potentially would produce, a number that would be,
We would hope.
of some significance, and you would be able to keep track of that, and they are responsible for maintaining the perpetuity affordability. Would be the individual owners who might feel after a certain length of time that they need to resell their property, and having perpetuity as part of the package is not going to make it possible to sell their property.
Right.
Am I interpreting the way you have looked at this?
Yes, you are. Frank, to your point, the way you find out what the rent is you ask them.
Yeah, but well, maybe, but I mean, there are houses that are rented in town, and other places that are rented in town that aren't reported and aren't asked or anything. So, I mean, there are places out there that are rented that nobody really knows they are rented.
So you may not get 100%, but you can survey and you can figure out, and if someone has gotten, the question you asked, which I think was a really good one, if somebody gets a grant and then decides down the line, like after 5 years or 10 years, I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm going to give them money back. How do you find out whether or not that is still an affordable unit?
So you wouldn't know.
The way you do that
You wouldn't
is-
know because the restrictions are off now.
That's right.
So there's no reporting necessary to that it is affordable.
No, but if you want to find out what the rent is and whether or not it's affordable, you call up the owner and say, how much you rent this thing for? And you're probably going to know anyway, because people who are renting units advertise for them. But anyway, that's how
Possibly,
you do rent studies.
I've never advertised for renting.
I guess
I've done a lot of rent studies, and the way you get good, hard, current, raw data is you find out who owns rental property, and you call them up, and 99% of the time they tell you, oh yeah, I got a 2-bedroom unit and it's rented for $585.
Right. It's not something they keep under a basket. I guess the other observation is that in that event, that's certain where you've taken back a grant block from somebody who's no longer wants to participate in the program, you've refunded the fund. So you've now got an opportunity to find somebody else who wants to participate. And maybe it's a one-to-one exchange for another unit.
Right.
With inflation and cost of living, does the value of what's affordable change year after year? Or if the rent's set at $500, that's it for perpetuity, or what?
I think what we said before is that in terms of the formula, that's set by census or government collected data that does update periodically.
So the value, a $250,000 home, that could get adjusted, and if it's a rental, that also could get adjusted.
I think they're
Well-
both tied to median income levels.
Well, I think the
Yeah.
rental would be able to be at the maximum of the affordable housing number, and that's gonna go up pretty much every year.
Okay.
So the rent could possibly go up every year.
Correct. Yep, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, assuming
Assuming there's,
a healthy economy that
Right.
continues to grow at a nice moderate level.
right.
No, it was addressed.
We sort of got off your train of progression.
It's your meeting, but, yeah. So,
I never go in order.
Under the goals section, I think we are suggesting a broadening of the statement of the goal.
But there's
Do you
no,
have the words that you want to add to it? You said you want to make
this-
it broad, you want to broaden?
Yeah, I think this does that by suggesting so that, for instance, senior housing could be included as within the scope of the program.
So just to be clear, what you're saying is senior housing that's not necessarily affordable or a mixture with affordable? I mean, do you want to just provide some description of what that means?
Well, we can figure
Yeah.
that out. We'll get to that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are two,
Because I also, go ahead,
Sorry, go
I'll
ahead.
let you finish.
you go.
You're on.
Okay, because I really do have more to say tonight than I usually do. And I don't want to be really nervous or weird, but I really do want to talk about this subject because I have been around Ed Stone from the time, was he actually the one that created this, started talking about this? I feel like it was during one of his political years that I know he's the one who told me about creating the fund, and I'm sure he was in and around the office at its creation.
He was certainly on the board when it was created.
Yeah.
My recollection.
So however it happens, it doesn't matter, but I've been, Ed would be the person that would come over and talk to me and tell me about stuff, whatever, so. But I have a question and then I'll ask you, or I'll tell you. Community financially sound, in the first sentence of goals, the town recognizes that broad diversity of housing is necessary to preserve our character and to keep the community financially sound. What's,
So where's that come from?
Yeah.
Right out of the town plan.
Yeah.
That's a verbatim quote. There's nothing original in the goals. All this was reaching back into the town plan and saying, well, let's anchor this program in the
Yeah.
town plan,
Okay.
because that's fresh on people's minds.
I see.
I mean, we could take
Okay.
a stab at unpacking. Is that a topic of concern or?
No, I just, when I read the
didn't like
paperwork
the
the
words.
other day, it came, like, I was like, wow, how does that keep the community financially sound? So it says, the town plan recognizes the broad diversity of housing is necessary to preserve Charlotte's character
Again, that's
and
what it
keep
says.
yeah. Okay, so I have something about affordable housing and off of paperwork. And I also wrote this down, what I'd like to talk about. So I haven't talked to Matt or Fritz or Lane, Frank, haven't talked to him in the last few weeks, let's just say. Over the years, I've talked to him about, because I do have enthusiasm about building and stuff like that. So, and I feel like I've been very fortunate for the last 17 years, but certainly the last 10, to hear a lot of opinions from a lot of different people on particular subjects. And I have come to my own voice of what I believe we could collectively do to support our affordable housing and our goals that we have set forth. A couple things people aren't going to like to really hear because it's harder to hear, but we start that. I also want to make it very clear that it's my point of view, as well as collectively, of things I've heard. And I am not going to speak of anybody's property that I haven't had enough conversation to feel comfortable that I can do it. And I'm going to be starting in East Charlotte and staying there until I get to the bike path. So, I thought that the fund was set up to help those who live in Charlotte have a little bit better, as well as we wanted to bring our, teachers or, farm workers, younger generation. So I think that's very good. And so I think in the last 10 years, we've put in 2 habitat neighborhoods, which created about 8 homes over the last 10 years. And that brought some children to the school. And it was the right age ranges and diversity. And I think that was really great. We did a lot of what we were supposed to do. So from my point of view, I do believe that the way we could work towards affordability and we want to have people aspire to move up in, new homes, whatever. So I think that there's 3 areas of East Charlotte that could easily get a 10, a 20, and a 30-year plan with a lot of cooperation and only a little bit of, the neighbors, whatever. We have great neighbors over there. We could all work together. So I actually would, I'm going to start off with the park, Frank. And I talked to Rick more about the mobile home park than I do Frank. So I don't refresh my memory. How many acres are there? 7, 14?
6.75.
Okay, 6.75, so 7. So my thought process is you take a few acres of that adjacent to what's already there, and you build a few economical, affordable mobile homes, something like that. So you put 7 or 10 people in the park. Now, if we're going to have 30 people, it's like 31 people a year from now until 2050. So now we have a year where we have 7 come in. And then I think that there seems like there's a way, I'd like to see if there was a way to make the park grow a little bit at a time over a certain amount of years. Must be projects work like that, where you have a big project, but you're not going to do it all at once. There's those kind of details we could do another time, but you know what I'm saying. You could plan out your... So then, so those actually 800 square foot homes over in the park, and energy efficient, a little garden area, and a porch or 2, and you've got a community within a community, and those folks would be able to have enough money to drive to a job. They would have to, hopefully we'd have something for them in Charlotte, but if we didn't, most likely those folks, because they do now, everyone that lives there. So now we'll move to another area, which is the senior housing.
I'm sorry, I just want to try to put this in the context of what you said. You said 10, 20, and 30-year projects. Is this one of those? And
It would be, right,
Which length period are you imagining this is? Is this a 30-year project?
I would say, well, how I would, in my wildest dreams, I would like to see plan it out for 10, keep it in mind for 20, and talk about 30. What is it? We could spend a little time.
Okay, thanks.
seeing where the growth went after we're not here anymore or something, you know.
Just follow up to that, you said in the, like in the first 10 years, additional 7 people and then 31 by 2050.
no,
Was that referring to that area?
Yeah, I didn't explain that very well, and the way I think about it myself is, I saw projections a year or so ago that Charlotte was projected to grow to about 1,000 more people by 2050, and that was with Chittenden Regional. And it seems reasonable once I did the simple math of 31 people a year. It's like, okay.
Okay, so that's where the
Yeah, so if we're not going to put 31 people all in one place.
7 out of the 31 people, average additional, okay.
Yes, thank
That
you.
makes that clear.
Yep. Yep. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's Clark's vision, as well as I believe it to be a very good one, is to have senior housing up behind the Grange. Clark and Suzanne have wanted to do that for a long time, and I think that we're in a good position to move in that direction right now. So what I was thinking about when I was writing this is that we look at the fact, from what I remember, because I haven't talked to them about this property in 3 or 4 years now, but I believe maybe 15 units could go in there, and they were sure that 9 could, but you know, that 15. And so I'm asking for, when we have a project area that makes sense for growth, that we plan it for sort of a maximum or a, you know, some kind of compromise. Let's not, so just in case up there at the Grange there was room for 20, then I would like to see that happen. It just makes sense to get it all maybe built out in that particular project, with whatever. It's just what I was thinking about last night. And so then the solar farm, and this is almost as hard as hearing about mobile home parks, but doing something in the solar field in front of the solar farm. So one time I actually saw drawings of a 3-story building that could actually maybe go in there. I don't know that I want that. I don't want that. But what it told me that is we could do something really good on that property, along with the good of the solar farm, because there's one house that abuts that land that is part of the housing and is always to be affordable, so the Chittenden housing, whatever. What I saw and still see, I saw it back when we were talking about putting the solar farm there, but now I just see it in a smaller version. I'd love to see some homes where families could move in and have a circle to, kids could ride their bikes on pavement so that they could go outside and play. It's a perfect spot, in my opinion, to build that field thoughtfully and, you know, of course, keep as much open field as we could, but, you know, we'll get to that part. So what I haven't written here is that there's property north of that the kids can figure out someday. But I believe we could build a modest neighborhood in the solar field and keep it with everything. So then I got thinking about you, Peter. You talked about people moving up. When I asked you, what if somebody gets a raise in their pay and they don't move, you know, and you said you wanted them to move on, you know. You'd hope they would, and that's the natural progression. So in the East Village, you could start out in the park you could move down to the solar farm. Then you move to Sheehan Green, then you move to the lake, and then you move back to senior housing. So there's your step by step by step. I also believe that in this, we really need, Michael, to get people to move east and west a lot more than they ever have before. We just need, we should have east and west movement. And,
Do you mean daily or in their
as we move
house
forward,
moves?
we'll figure out, we have, I don't know how exactly, I guess I was just thinking, when I wrote this, I wrote more than ever before, so I don't know. And in part, that would be a bicycle lane that would connect us to the school at least, from village, you'd almost get village to village that way. And then if we're doing the sign on Route 7 sometime soon, I was thinking maybe we should talk with them about creative ways of stopping traffic every half hour or something, like, kind of like the ferry, that if you want to cross over to one side or the other, you wait till the half hour and it's going to stop. I don't know. I was just thinking about that. So I did write that most of these houses that I see, or what I was talking about, would be homeowner, that people would own their own homes for the majority of them. I don't know if it works well to have a mobile home park where the one person owns the land but people can buy because I did that, and we owned our own trailer, and it was wonderful. And so that's how I'm not thinking about how you would do any of your business. I was just wanted to make sure that, I also believe that the opportunities, once you started to dig dirt on whatever project, I believe that the opportunities are endless for refurbishment, for job creation mostly. Steve Denton's over here pushing dirt. Somebody else, we have an incredible community that would pull together right from everything from stones to, whatever. Just, I know a lot of these people who work very hard and love their town as well, so. So then it just seems like, I'm almost done here, but we could move some younger families in with in the two neighborhoods. We'd have, and then we'd have the senior housing,
Which two neighborhoods?
the park and the solar.
Got it, okay, thanks.
And then we'd have the senior. I do see at the very end, I also wrote, we really need to have a daycare over in East Charlotte. And, I would welcome the Charlotte Children's Center to come over and be something like that. Wouldn't that be fun? So I did have to make one phone call today to Naomi at the school, and I asked her how many children, kindergartners, were coming in this fall, and it's 27 compared to about 36 or 38. She just graduated a class of 38 or 7, and so we have 27 to replace that. So if there was a way that you could build and plan around, growth in a way where maybe we can write whatever. I don't exactly know where we go from here, other than I believe that to be a very good step in an area that could accept the change with very little change. And maybe we, instead of putting that fund out there, we somehow give it, use it for earth moving, or, I don't know how to use that 130, but there, or the money, just, we'll figure that out. Septic, I don't know, And then we have, really, seems to me like we'd accomplish quite a bit in a 10-year period, and from there we can let the kids take over. Wait, I have one other thing to say. The beauty of running east and west, for anybody that gets used to doing that, we have those beautiful open fields. We got the Philo farm. We've got Steeple Ridge. We've got Pizza on Earth. Then you got the village. You've got a beautiful drive there, the llama. So I've had this on my mind for a very long time. I always think about that sort of thing. So I just decided on Saturday that tonight was the night that I had to take this opportunity and see how we go from here. And so thank you for your time.
If I can, what I'm hearing you saying in this ambitious and exciting kind of notion that you have to draw these, the program that we're focused on here, which is pretty modest in size and scale, but nonetheless could be directed or applied to different circumstances in town. Am I hearing that you think that this program and the elements of it make sense, and it's a matter of how it might be focused in the future?
Well, I guess I would want to see the reality of this with the reality of this. I'm not sure about this totally. There's a lot of,
Maybe under
I don't know, I'm gonna need a little help on that one.
feasibility studies, maybe maybe one of the studies ought to be a town-wide spot where affordable housing makes sense. Like buy a solar farm. People aren't gonna spend, that's a good use of real estate that people may see as not as expensive as things with the view. I think that's, when I look at the goals, there's two things that come in my mind. One is a plan of where this is all gonna happen, or is this just gonna be as a person pops up?
Yeah,
Put one
that's the
here,
part
one
I'm
here,
not
one
gonna
there,
like.
which is what we have. And the other thing that I still miss in the goal is a number. This is kind of a perpetual goal that will perpetually be increasing. There was two numbers that came out that actually could be considered a goal. It carries maybe 7 people out of 31. Well, there's roughly 25% a year if you were going to have 7 of those 31 that move in to town. In the theory of things, that would be a 25% goal of affordable housing. I don't know if that's an appropriate number or how to, a goal to me is not an open-ended thing. Am I making any sense here? These goals are kind of ethereal, they're great. Can they ever be reached? Is there a point when we say we got enough affordable housing?
See, that's kind of what I was thinking.
I don't know how to get to that spot.
Well, kind of drawing a bit of an analogy to what we deal with conserving land. It's a voluntary process, as would be this. And so the towns, unless the town proactively purchases and develops land for affordable housing, this, as is the Conservation Fund, is an incentive tool
but because it's very different from, but this fund, conservation fund, are very different from the regulatory process. I mean, this is out there as an incentive, but it's not it's voluntary. So to establish, we will create X number of units per year, or we will have X number of people per year in this category, is not something the town can dictate unless the town wants to do the development itself. So I think, yes, trying to, obviously you want to have an idea of sort of a rough idea of what you want to create, but it's a little bit hit or miss because it is voluntary. Does that make sense? I mean, so I'd say keep that in mind. If the town is not going to create this housing itself, then we have a rough target of what we might want to create, which is based on the amount of money that is either in or put into the fund. But there's no way to enforce it being used because it's an incentive program, not a regulatory program. If you see what I mean?
So we always will have to have an affordable housing fund? Is that what? Or
Well, I mean, no, I mean, that's at
always
the,
have it
that's
10
at the
years from now,
discretion,
or-
that's at the discretion of the town, is how, do you want to do what you can? Do we want to do what we can as an incentive program to help jumpstart affordable housing? So as long as that is a goal, we will have the fund. But in terms of pegging a number that will be created per year, you can't do that because it's a voluntary. So this is more of a nuance thing as you think about the questions you're
It's
asking.
more missed than hit typically.
Well,
Say,
as I
just
said,
because-
it's a carrot. It's a carrot out there that doesn't have a stick attached to it, like
there's-
a regulatory thing. And so it's also not meant to be, nor could it ever be, because we don't have that much money, to be the principal funding source. This is out there as a little bit of an incentive that might be what it takes to bump things into feasibility for someone.
Do
But
you think this would be, and do you think this would change the mind of Habitat for Humanity for a project?
well,
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, because I mean, they already looked at the land, they already figure out what they want to do. They have their cookie cutter ideas of how they want their little developments to look. Would this little bit of money, I mean, they're already doing the perpetually affordable in some way, shape, or form. So I mean, is this actually an incentive to them, and would it be something that we would actually want to offer them?
well, we believe.
And keep it for people that live in town, for that want to create that accessory apartment or create a house, not being a big contractor.
Well, we think that the way we started out was to look at the existing grant program and to discuss where the points were that seemed to be kind of slowing things down. And so the points that we've proposed, we think and hope, would be an incentive not just to Habitat or Champlain Housing Trust, but to individuals in town as well. And so that was kind of the base of what we were trying to do, is to say, all right, some things are slowing this down from being as effective as
So
we might.
we're not in the business of developing, I mean, the ideas are good, but we have to make it feasible for others to take the carrot.
Unless the town wants to get into the business of creating affordable housing, which I assume we
No,
are.
that's not what I was asking. I was asking if we're starting to work with our town plan, our town regulations. We've got this obligation we want to set. That all can be developed all throughout the thing that I was talking about. To answer your question, I didn't know how to answer it. I want to just fashion our words so that that could happen. in East Charlotte over the next however many years, 10 years.
Right, but
Dean's had his hand up for a
I just
while.
wanted to say, in response to both Gary and Frank, I received an email, I don't think, between any confidences, of one of the owners of one of the 3 properties you mentioned, asking about this grant program, saying he's interested because he wants to start doing something.
And probably so,
Yeah.
and now he can, but he has no idea that I was sitting down here to
No,
talk with you
but-
today,
but
so,
I
but
think
yes,
to Frank's point,
yes.
yes, there, every little bit counts. And this is a small
Right.
program that may
Yeah.
help one of those
And we're
3 property owners do
Correct.
something.
Because I believe the program really originated for Charlotte first and new folks second, to be politically correct, hopefully. But really, Ed Stone would have wanted all Charlotte people to move into the Habitat houses. Of course, that couldn't happen, and that's great. We did what we did, but
Yeah. If I can, yes and yes. And yes, this program is intended to provide an inducement and an opportunity to help make a development occur, whether it's that development's an accessory unit or whether it's a more ambitious real estate undertaking. Habitat is looking for sources that are going to achieve affordability, like free land, free labor, free money, and this little bit, and also local support. That's very important for them as well as for the Champlain Housing Trust. So the existence of this fund, that's a statement from the town that says, we're willing to put in $15,000 per unit, which is not a lot of money. That was important for Habitat to get involved here. And that happened some years ago. And when I was talking 3 months ago to them, he underscored that this was an important ingredient, not a lot of money. The point that Lane, you made about the town doesn't want to get into the development business, it doesn't want to set up a local housing development company, which some municipalities do, but there's a certain scale that you have to achieve and even to get there. You don't want to do that. You want to rely on other people, be they homeowners or nonprofit developers, to do that for you. In terms of how you try to link this thing, this program isn't going to do it all, but it can be a tool to help achieve some of the things that you started to list there, and that you have the passion behind. And that's all it is. And as far as who are the ultimate beneficiaries, the town can say priority for existing residents. Exclusive opportunity, that's more difficult. And I've been in situations where that has been so important, and people sue against that. I mean, you don't want to do that, but you can set up systems so that existing residents, be they renters or purchasers, can have an opportunity ahead of others.
I guess what I'd really like to see us do with some of that money is, and like I said, our regulations is whatnot, is to encourage and, use some, just to encourage that to be able to happen, because we know that it all could happen, instead of having a process where you have to, and I certainly want a process, but, in a way where you just work together versus against, and just get it done and start working and move on with jobs and housing and get our school numbers back up, and we can do it all together, and the small amount of money, we'll figure that out another time, so.
I have a pragmatic question. Where in the process of planning a development in the past have parties applied for this? Is it while they're waiting for their planning approval, before they go to the planning commission?
It depends who it is. If it's a local nonprofit, and I don't know what process Champlain Housing Trust went through, or the people at Habitat went through when they decided to get involved in these two projects. But you are aware, and they were aware that this resource existed, and that was an important ingredient for the reasons that I listed. Not this, it's hard free cash, and it also is an indicator that there's local support. And if you don't have enough money and there's not local support, you go to Heinsberg.
I guess part of what I'm wondering is with the cart and horse of thinking about having a program that incentivizes better than the program used to, is it may be in section 7, the grant agreements, that with an award of a grant, a letter will be produced by the committee to the planning commission or the zoning board, depending on where the project is being reviewed, of the town support for that project.
Right.
And that might be an extra incentive for an individual or an organization that, might be looking at the feasibility side. Sometimes developments costs tens of thousands of dollars just to get through the planning process.
Right.
And that could be a free incentive that might be attractive to individuals or organizations.
Do you think it would be appropriate to use any of this money for, not a feasibility study for a specific project, but for people to explore, some consultant, some group to explore things like density bonus and that for the town plan in general? I mean, if you spent X amount of this fund, somebody said, well, if you did density bonus and somebody's got, a 6-lot subdivision, well, we'll throw in the 7th house if you give you a density bonus, small lot, add it to your project. I mean, there's a number of other ways to encourage affordable housing, especially in a rural and not an urban nature, because a lot of the affordable, the big habitat people always seem to have, to me, it looks like an urban setting. I mean, they put 4 or 5 little houses on the street and with a cul-de-sac, and okay, that looks like urban USA, or to keep with the rural character as it says we want, if you start spreading it out around the town. I don't know if that's feasible, and I don't know if we want to expand our range to see what the possibilities are and to use some of this money to do that.
No, I don't want to. It should be east and west development, not north and south.
It sounds like what you're suggesting is to expand this to allow the town to tap this to fund its own planning process by using it to pay for analysis that would produce data the planning commission can find useful in revising the plan.
The town plan says move forward with affordable housing. Well, this is a very limited carrot that you're throwing out there, but there may be other things that are out there that could and should be explored to actually integrate affordable housing throughout the town, which I don't think we're going to get to. Maybe, I don't know. That's just the thought, is maybe some of this could be used, like you just said, for the town to actually do some of their own investigation into other ways to promote affordable housing, other than to put a monetary carrot out there for a limited amount of money.
My impression, my take on that is that's radically different than the purposes for which the fund was created, which doesn't mean it's not a good idea, but it does seem very different.
It is.
It also seems like it's clearly in the realm of what the planning commission might be looking for, and certainly not the affordable housing committee that doesn't exist yet. I think that's more of an implementation policy kind of role.
Well, it's radically different, but then again, what was there didn't go very far. I mean, historically, this hasn't gone very far.
I hear your thirst for data and the importance of knowing in advance, have a better idea in advance of how we can be effective. So understand what the impact of a choice we might make would be, whether it's likely to be effective or not. I think that's important.
Maybe we should be talking to the planning commission
So
about the affordable housing and something along that line.
Somehow make it,
I think
You know,
what's
show 'em
happening
what
is-
they've done.
Well, I think what's happening is we're getting kind of off track a little bit, because what you guys are really discussing is our zoning bylaws and what the planning commission looks at. And if we're gonna try to forward more affordable housing out into the town-wide, I mean, I think we're talking more about, as Fritz was saying, density bonuses and maybe affordable housing within a project, more than a single person out there building an affordable house out there on a piece of property.
If you're wanting more directed and effective advice about how to achieve the affordable housing goals that, well, first of all, to help you develop the goal, then I think that's a laudable objective. I think that's money you should be pulling out of your general fund and budgeting for, rather than using these funds for that. Personally, I think that would be a more appropriate way to pursue that.
I look at these, this is a limited pot, and we're gonna do a few things, and then it's gonna go away. And you don't have any long-term goals met of increasing affordable housing for the town. You've used up your incentive money for one or two projects, and you're done. So the choice then is to start trying to get people to give more money for the Affordable Housing Fund to keep it going.
Well, Fritz, actually, when this was originated 10 years ago, there were 5 successive years where 40, 50,000 a year was put into it.
Yes, but those were developers though, right?
Pardon?
Well,
Taxpayer.
the taxpayer dollar, but then the mostly developers asked for the grants, right? Correct.
So
Quite a bit up in the,
talking about how we seeded the,
yes,
he's saying through in our budget,
Right.
we put 40, 40, 40, 40, 30 into the budget
Yeah.
to grow the fund. I mean,
and some people.
you're talking
used
about
it.
depleting the fund. There's no reason, if the support is behind it, to, I mean, we haven't put any money in the fund since fiscal year 13. So depending how this grows, you could put it back.
Projects come in and $30,000 goes out, we can budget in anywhere from
Right.
$0 to $30,000 to maintain it, if it seems like it's a popular program.
I think, I'll give you some unsolicited advice. I think it might be worthwhile for you all to find somebody who was on the board back in that time, on the select board during that time, and talk to her or him about what they had to do to make this happen. Because my recollection was the Habitat project in particular took a lot of select board initiative and a lot of work by the select board to make it happen.
But that was
and that-
something, yeah, that was
Just
different.
so clear, the project on Greenbush Road did not get a grant. That was, the town
Right.
donated the land,
Right.
but it didn't get a grant. The
Yeah.
Habitat project on Spear Street did get a grant.
The one on Spear Street and the one at the top of, over.
I don't know about the value.
Be sure lot at the
It
top
wasn't-
of
it was
Heinsberg
3
Road right
lots,
there.
so
They
about a
got
quarter acre each.
the, what, twin checks, correct? He, that builder there probably got, you know, $60,000, $80,000. One of the
Did that-
homes got a lot of money.
Did that seem like the right use of the fund to you? The right way that the way it should have been?
Well, here nor there on it, I suppose. It's great. It's
So-
a nice house, but
So we are right at time and we're way digress, so
For the Habitat for Humanity houses?
say that again.
The right use for the fund, or are you talking about for the humanity, Habitat for
Well,
Humanity?
Carrie's example was the Twin Shacks development. I was just curious
Oh.
if that seemed like an appropriate use of the
I
fund.
don't know. I heard some people say they didn't think it was, and
Can I get a straw poll of what people thought about the idea of having, tying to the grant agreement, a letter of support?
I think that's a good idea.
say that one more time.
In the grant agreement, adding a sentence that talks about with an award, a letter of support would go to the planning or zoning
Planning or
commission.
zoning in advance,
Yeah.
so it's part of the package.
With an award,
Yes.
if an award is made, then either the committee or the select board, whoever is deciding on the award would send a letter of support for the project and the planning process.
I guess our The boards are making their review based on the land use regulations, and the land use regulations don't really have any criteria regarding funding, so
Well, it's not the funding, it's the town support. You know, parties can come in, neighbors can come in, have an opportunity to weigh in. So this would be a letter that would come in the planning process that would say, yep, this is, you know,
If they meet all the
publicly supported.
requirements.
It wouldn't be about the money, it would be that it went through
There
another
is some
pro-
support.
approval process, and it would kind of be a stamp of
So it'd be
approval.
like the road cut approval.
Yeah, it's just
Sort
one
of,
more
yeah.
thing that the town has looked at could be included as, you know,
I think that's a good idea.
being supportive.
The
So,
question that I would have to the board, what we have done as our little informal working group, is tried to focus on the trust fund and the program that has not been particularly robust and successful. How can we make this thing better? And we've tried to present to you a policy framework, some goals, some changes, how this thing could be reinforced. I'm not sure what we do now. What Mike began to present was, and there's nothing in this latest draft that should be new to you. 50% of it was in some paper that we gave you back in May, and then we refined that a little bit. We said, okay, if you want this thing to work better, here are recommendations for how to make that happen. What do you want us to do now? My sense is that there's reluctance for a range of reasons to re-embrace this program. And if that be your will, well and good. But it doesn't give us any direction to take the next step.
We have exhibits A, B, and C.
Pardon me?
We have exhibits A, B, and C.
No, those are things that if you all were to endorse this 2.5-page statement, which builds upon the vote you took 2 weeks ago, the 4-0 and 1 vote that says, yes, we want you to work on these goals and put some meat on this skeleton. If you were to embrace this, we would go back and make more finite this program redesign, get into procedures, draft some documents, and come back, and then you got a program. But that's the only way I know how to proceed with one of these things. But if you're going to focus on East Village, West Village, do a development program, and use these to do a new needs study, I mean, now we're all over the place, and we got no place to go, so.
So this is only our second time, correct, that we've met about this together?
Well, we've been
As
here
three,
4 times, but 2
4 times?
working sessions.
Two,
Yeah.
okay, 2 working sessions.
Yep.
And so.
I know you like
we're-
3.
I do,
Yeah.
so, right, that would be, for sure, I know that I'm not ready again to,
Well, we could review a final.
you know, and I don't even know if I would, just in case, just, you know, I just gotta make sure that I feel it thoroughly through before
You know what
I can embrace it.
What I did before this meeting is I looked at this draft and I looked at the old one. And it's night and day improvement as
Oh,
far
sure,
as
I know
creating
that,
a better
yes,
program.
yep.
But if I'm looking at this and comparing it to my ideas of utopia, I think there's a long way to go. And like Mike suggested, the board might want to be more active with the general fund and with our energies on the agenda of pursuing affordable housing through different levers than just this one. But this program, I think, is, you know, what the committee's done is vastly improved it, made it much less of a scary agreement to enter into and to investigate, and I think would generate a lot of interest in
So-
Made it
affordable
come to
housing.
the
What's the
table and
difference
stay on the
between
table, made it
affordable
come to the
housing
table,
and
that's
senior
good.
housing in this? What's the difference between affordable housing and senior housing in this? I know senior housing is listed under other eligible projects, but I mean, what would be the difference in the funding for senior and affordable? I'm just trying to figure out why we have a difference. I'm not that I'm not encouraging either one, I'm trying to figure out why there's a difference in labeling.
Well, they're identified differently in your regs. They're different qualifications and different types of housing with different objectives. And I guess the way this is envisioned, because there is a lot of discretion to the granting body to review and evaluate a program, you can put that question off and exercise discretion about whether it's an appropriate use or not. But it's a much longer answer than that we're gonna have to spin Peter back up to tell you the difference between those, and you don't have time for that now. Would you like a part of our next meeting to include a compare and contrast section on affordable housing versus
Well, I'm just
senior
trying to figure out
housing?
whether it should be a separate section or whether it should be just, whether it should be lumped in just as affordable senior housing, just to put a,
Well, this comes from one of our recommendations, which is that you expand the scope of the possible recipients of grants from this program to possibly allow it to go to something other than a strictly, as defined by the regs, affordable housing project.
so you're trying, so if somebody falls under the senior housing project, there's no income limit.
In the land use regs?
In this program, which you have here defined, if I have an affordable person and a senior person, this particular project could not have the affordable person in it because it's a senior project, or vice versa.
It would not have to have.
And
would have to meet-
would
not have to
there, would there
affordable
be
qualifications.
a monetary limit, like affordable? Would that not be so enforced with the senior housing?
Let me try this. Affordable housing, senior housing. There is opportunity for overlap. And I have developed affordable senior housing, and so is Cathedral Square Corporation. So you can do that. So what this board could decide to do.
But this says senior housing.
I understand. What this board could do is to say, we want to have, we want to encourage the development of affordable housing, affordable senior housing, and just senior housing. We're not pushing just senior housing, but it's an opportunity where you can have a mixed income housing development, which I think might make a lot of sense. And then you can put some direction behind that to say, we'd like to see, a 12-unit development that's got 4 units that are low income, moderate income, and unrestricted income.
Oh, wow, really? You want that?
So,
I say do I want that? No, I'm saying these are opportunities for this board to
Make sure that.
wrestle with and to say, this is what we want to encourage and this is what we don't.
That's the other thing about this document, maybe just to bookend the conversation till the next meeting, is this is creating a framework for decisions to be made.
Right.
It's not making the decisions.
Right.
So that it opens
this is the foundation to get started with.
entryways to applications coming in, and then those discussions can
Right,
happen.
but when a person comes in and applies for this, and they're
Yeah.
going for senior housing only, do they fit within the guidelines?
Well, that can be part of the award, if an award is given.
I'm
That they need to, or
assuming
not.
that's going to be part of,
I-
A, which would be the application requirements. When somebody fills this out, they're filling it out as senior housing, applying for senior housing.
Making clear what the objective of it would have to be part of their application. Yes, we are applying for a grant as an affordable housing project or as a senior housing project. That could be a check the box in the application.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Right. Because I'm just trying to figure out, since it's labeled separately, I'm just trying to figure out whether a non-affordable senior housing would be able to get a grant for this.
And I would say that the answer to that is that we would like to see that theoretically possible, but understanding that the discretion to award that would be entirely with the granting body. And back to sort of what Fritz was talking about, maybe, that right now you're not even getting a chance to sample all the great ideas that might be out there in the community about how to meet some of the housing needs in town, because this program is not encouraging people to even take a shot at it. But if you make it accessible and lower the barriers to submitting a grant application, you might have a chance to, like the planning commission does, redesign somebody's project the way you want it to be. You know how that goes. So give yourself a chance to do that, I guess.
But getting applicants
Yeah.
interested.
So the direction, in summary, we haven't gotten through this yet. We just heard a lot of comments. We certainly went on divergent paths, but to me, this is a foundation that makes it more, as you just said, accessible to applicants. So I think we need to proceed with this. And I think Frank's comments about senior versus affordable, maybe some of those things could be fleshed out a little bit more for the next meeting and continue to go through this. That's what I'm thinking.
That sounds like what we heard too.
Thank you. Very good. Lots of, yeah?
Just in terms of timing of the next meeting?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
It may not be in 2 weeks. There's something else we got to talk about, and so we'll keep you posted.
It's great that affordable housing has gotten the hearing that you're willing to put
Yeah,
behind it.
yeah, we really appreciate that.
Thank you. Good work, guys. Okay. Okay, next on our agenda is, are there adjustments to the agenda? Yes.
I do have something I'd like to add to the agenda. The National Multiple Sclerosis Society has had a fundraising ride in Charlotte since 2011. They submitted an application back in April. There was a little bit of kerfluffle, and it didn't get scheduled to the select board. The ride is scheduled for August 4th, so I was wondering if that could be added for a brief discussion while Bill is here.
I'd be willing to do it right now. Are you familiar with it? It's a recurring ride. Normally, these, with your support, we tend to be pretty quick and supportive. So this is the MS ride scheduled for August 4th, which is not too far away, and it, like we just said, it missed the agenda. So is there, if it's all right with the board, is there a motion to approve the MS Society ride for August 4th, 2018?
So moved with the approval of the Recreation Commission.
Okay. Is there anybody here representing the MS ride?
I don't believe so. I think the primary fundraiser is out of state.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, thank you.
Do we know where it goes?
There's a turn, it starts in South Burlington. There's a what they call a turn sheet, you know, it shows the,
Oh, here it is.
Basically, to interpret that, if I might give assistance to you, is it comes down Greenbush Road and crosses by the brick store. They have a rest stop at the Old Lantern,
Right.
and then continue on south from there. And then they come back up Route 7, take a right on Old Hollow, left on Mount Philo
Right.
to Spear, and stop, I believe, at Carey's store. And then continue north.
Right, right. So going down on West Charlotte, coming back up East Charlotte, and rest stop Old Lantern and Carey's store.
Correct.
Any other comments or thoughts, questions?
I would just like to point out that I think that is Drew going to contact Fire and Rescue?
I contacted Fire and Rescue. I contacted Rob Mullen. He said in the past there's been no problem. He probably won't be here tonight. Dick St. George probably will be here tonight if there are any questions regarding that. But in the past, he hasn't had any problems with it.
Great. And we have not either. We have not had any feedback from any citizens who have had any concern. They're estimating about 100 riders, and it'll be spread over a considerable amount of time.
Okay. Well, you made the motion. Do you have the chair authorize, part of that authorize the chair to sign it?
Yes.
Okay.
Do they have any traffic control or anything?
They do not specifically list where they have officers, and they have a support team that follows the riders. I would if we were to request one, it would probably be at the brick store here for that crossing. It is a straight over crossing. I don't know what they've had at that intersection in the past.
Well, you saw the paragraph here, they have a support team that goes with them.
Exactly, but they don't specify where on their
Right.
turn sheet they have officers. They say they have officers, but they don't specify
Well,
where.
they do indicate, but none are interlocked.
Okay.
Oh, actually, they do, actually, coming back on the return, down at mile 79,
Oh, yeah, there it is.
or 75, 70, actually, that's Ferrisburg.
Oh, there is a key there that has the
On the
officers?
right-hand column, it says where police will be.
Oh, good, I didn't see it. Thank you.
So for Charlotte, the heading south, there's none. Heading north, on the way back, there are 2 stops where police will be available. One's Mount Philo Road, and the other is US Route 7 North. He must be crossing over.
Yeah.
Looks like they cross over in Ferrisburg,
Right.
off Chicago Road, and then they're riding up 7 to Old Hollow to Mount Philo, and then they have somewhere on their, they go Mount Philo to Spear, so I wonder where they have the cop.
I believe it's the intersection of Mount Philo and Spear.
That doesn't make any sense, that's just kind of a veer to the right.
I just want to let Carrie know what we're discussing and
The application. Have we done this before?
yes,
Uh-huh. Is this the one that sets up at the store?
yes.
Well, guess what? We're having a big outdoor market that day, so their porta potty will be great. But we also bring in a lot more traffic now that I think about it. So,
Are they pretty spread out by then?
what time is it starting?
Yeah.
Oh, it's spread, yes, it is,
They come
yes.
back north
Yeah.
at the very end.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fine. Well, I'm certain we can work it out because it is spread out, but it seems to me like it's probably at least 20 or 30 that stop by, right?
There's 100 riders, and if 100 make it, it's probably unlikely that 100 will make it.
No, it's more like 30 come by the store. I would say 20 or 30.
Which is probably a lot less than you have on a normal Saturday anyway.
Yeah.
And I think of all the groups that do this kind of thing, this is one of the most organized groups.
I have no problem. I really like the idea that there's a porta potty on the green when we're having our outdoor market that day, so it's all good.
So everybody's good, ready to vote?
A little synergy.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, good.
I'll follow up, or Dean, do you want to follow up with Drew?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, that was the adjustment to the agenda. Any public comments?
Representative Bill, no, I'd like to ask Bill to talk a little bit about Whiskey Bay.
Just to bring, is that okay?
Sure.
Just to bring you up to date.
This is supposed to be part of updates, yeah.
We're trying to act as responsibly as we can to a request by, from the Tonino and DeFreeze lot to have a little more control over the dog situation at Whiskey Bay. And we met with Mr. Tonino last week, that would be Dean and myself and Dick. And I think we've come up with a program that's very satisfactory to them, and I can run through that. We had some ideas. Basically, what we'd like to do is impose the leash law, which is on the ordinances already, and simply make it so at that location that the dogs must be leashed while on land. Basically, a leash on land policy, if you want to sum it up in a.
So that changes the concept of that's the one spot where dogs could be off leash.
That's correct.
What about the words of dogs under control versus mandatory leash law?
It's actually the control that is more of an issue. The word control is more of an issue than the dogs. In other words, the Toninos are more concerned with people yelling at the people yelling at their dogs than they are with the dogs themselves. The noise disturbance of people yelling at their dogs is actually more than the dogs themselves. And he also wants to reiterate that this is a very small minority, 95% or so of the people that are using that beach, both people and dogs, are polite, pleasant, and abiding by the regulations. However, we'd like to be respectful of their co-ownership or co-leasing of the beach and try and support them as best we can.
Well, that precludes dogs being off leash then.
It precludes dogs being off leash except in the water. We decided that it was very difficult to have a dog on leash in the water.
What about the concept of having Callie kind of being there between 4 and 6, randomly?
I think, I'm sorry, Christina, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to point out that our ordinance does not state leash, so that's where Callie has nothing to enforce. Our ordinance states that a dog must be leashed or under control at all times. It does not specify that it has to be leashed at all times, so that's where Callie has a hard time, and she's even had it occur in other areas, of enforcing dog under control. So our ordinance doesn't allow for you to change it to just be a leash. You're going to have to change that.
So what's the regulatory process? I mean, if someone can't get their dog to return to them, it's clearly not under control, and Callie can levy a fine?
She would probably issue a warning first and then a fine after, if it was continual. I mean, usually if it's a continuation.
The determination shouldn't be hard, but what is the process? The fine gets contested, let's say. Where does it go? What
It's
regulatory
like a traffic ticket kind of fine, so.
it goes to Superior Court?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be on Callie's discretion. If someone's dog, like we've been reading about in the emails, is on someone else's private property and going to the bathroom on their porch, and they can't get them back verbally, to me, that's not under control. I mean, it's kind of clear.
So you're saying the ordinance covers,
I think it can if Callie's comfortable issuing a warning and a fine. I think we'd need to ask her that.
but is she going to patrol there once in a while, or just based on somebody calling her up? A suggestion was made that maybe, once in a while, maybe she has a vest on or something, Tanner Charlotte.
Especially if, like you're saying, 95% of the dogs are not an issue. I would hate to throw the baby out with the bathwater on the use of this space that the town owns. If it's 1 or 2 people who are having a hard time controlling their animals, we should really be addressing that.
So what have we said that's different here from what we've currently got? Enforcement?
Yes, exactly. Yes, some sort of, a little bit of teeth behind it, and I would I have not posted on Front Porch Forum that particular, we wanted to run it by you first, that particular requirement is now in effect, that all dogs must be on a leash while on dry land.
I guess
That's not exactly what Christina said.
People can look at you and say, that's not the dog ordinance, and they can't get issued a fine for that. That's the problem, is if you're saying it has to be a leash all the time, that's not our dog ordinance. And that's where the problem lies. And our dog ordinance is posted on our website, so people can freely read it to know when their dog is.
Maybe there's some room for interpretation in that the dog, if it's a behaved dog and it's under control, no action is required.
But if you state everybody has to be on a leash, all they got to do is go to our website and pull up the nuisance ordinance and say.
I would quote the ordinance. I would quote the ordinance that you just said to us, if you're going to put it on Front Porch Forum, and say one of our goals or one of our efforts are going to be to enforce this at Whiskey Bay. There will be enforcement.
And maybe even, I think it's pretty reasonable also to come up with some wording that says, the neighbors request that you're not yelling to get your dogs back in their back. I don't know how you can word that part.
We have signs up now saying, be respectful and courteous of the neighbors, etc.
There needs to be some definition. I mean, police don't like to give you tickets for subjective things unless it's so blatantly crazy that they can't miss. So if you were to say something like, you know, under control means stays on the town property, comes without excessive calling, just a couple of hints so that if Callie goes out there, she can say, look, your dog's is off the property. That's specifically says, that determines it's out of control. Because otherwise, it's just a subjective thing that's gonna be putting Callie in between a rock and a hard spot.
Is she open to?
I talked to her.
Bringing up the animal?
I talked to her yesterday. She'd like to be recognized in some capacity, meaning I was telling Dean maybe an orange vest that said Town of Charlotte Animal Control Officer. So when she walks down there, she's going to get the respect of her representing the town. So that's one thing she'd like. The other thing, she normally responds to calls, you know, phone calls. If we asked her to do this, maybe there should be some compensation. You know, like $25 a visit. You know, it's a seasonal thing, you know, June, July, and August pretty much. So we haven't, as a board, warned this and talked about it, but those are, she didn't bring up the compensation, but I was thinking if she's going to pick this up and actually has to go out of her way between 4 and 6 during the week to be there, or maybe on a Saturday, she ought to be compensated. Mary?
Why don't you just put a sign up that says no dogs past this point?
Private property.
Private property for the Taninos. Violators will be fined.
The problem is, if you have Whiskey Bay there,
I know what it looks like.
you got the walking path down, which is stone, and right at the bottom are his stairs, and they're like 2-3 feet apart. So the dog, just normal dog with a nose, goes up the stairs.
You know, on the other hand, he has to be a little bit reasonable as well, because he is right there abutting a town access that people like to use. It's like having a house on Hills Point Road and you're right next to the beach. I mean, it's a reality. You can't, it's not perfect. And people who have dogs that misbehave and they can't control them, they're not gonna really care what you say or what you do, or if there's a leash, or they're just not gonna care.
So,
What were you thinking of anything in particular, Mary, as far as action or no action?
I would put a sign up that said no dogs past this point, private.
No
private-
dogs up the stairs.
Private property.
They go up the stairs.
Violators will be fined.
I mean, you gotta expect noise when you're next to a public area.
but you could put the sign, I think what you're saying, at the bottom of the stairs, is that what you're saying?
I would put the sign where it would be most agreeable to the Taninos.
Yeah, he needs several because his property line
That's
is
fine.
the whole path, so there would be a need to be several there.
Oh, it would be clear.
Pardon?
That would be clear.
And maybe some down here for.
So, you're in agreement with a vest or something for,
I think that's a great idea.
what about compensation?
The signs, or, and
Well-
I'm not sure that the Taninos would want signs.
I guess to Mary's point, if it's agreeable, if they don't want any,
Right.
What do they want?
It was actually Dick's suggestion to have the leash on land request. Because if they're under control on the beach, then the yelling goes away.
Well, they swim in the water off leash and then they get out of the water wherever they want to.
I'm saying we're doing the best we can, or we're trying to do the best we can. We're doing something, which is what they're requesting that we, you know, and again, the weather has been extraordinary this year as far as people wanting to take their dogs there. But I I just think we owe it to them as good neighbors to do the best we can. I mean, he has 13, the numbers are, you know, on a hot Saturday evening, 15 to 20 people and 10 to 12 dogs at once. Again, not all at once necessarily, but sometimes all at once. And that, when they're sitting on their porch, is a totally raucous environment.
So I would think the signs that Mary talks about and the enforcement that you talk about.
And I like the idea of a stipend. I mean,
Yeah.
especially if you anticipate 1 or 2 fines per season, it really
Pay
might
for
be
it.
a wash.
So you'll talk to Callie, we're thinking 25, see how many times works for her, because she's got another job. So there's a potential stipend there.
What is the compensation for Cali now for calls?
$3,000 a year flat. It's not based on,
It's not based on calls.
No, it's to handle all things
So-
dogs
so
in the town.
again, why
on
would there
town
be a-
lands.
I mean, just because it's something that we're requesting, is that why you're
It's a
trying,
new-
is that
new
why
requirement.
you're trying to put a number on this? Instead
It's a
of
new
just calling it
requirement.
a service that the dog catcher or animal control officer does?
She normally responds to calls. This is her being asked to be at a certain place at a certain time on a
We should
semi-regular
probably
basis.
talk about that at another meeting.
I think we could probably, I wouldn't say regular time, I think we could probably almost make it at her convenience.
Okay.
And the times that are most potentially frequented by the most people.
Okay.
It also sounds similar to the directed patrols with the state police. If there seems to be a road because of a construction project that's getting a lot of traffic, well, they focus on that. So if Whiskey Bay kind of has a flare-up with someone who repeatedly doesn't have control of their dog and they're there on every evening, you know, in July, well, then she focuses until there's a behavior modification there.
I'm happy to liaise with Kathy directly if you so like that, to assist her,
Fine.
make introductions, et cetera, to the Taninos and facilitate the issue.
Work with Dean as well as far as the, okay, everybody good with that?
I guess I'm not quite clear on the compensation issue, whether you want to schedule that for another meeting and vote on it.
I think I mean, it's a very small amount of money. Do we really want to put this on, discuss it again, or?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to vote on it, if we're gonna cut a check for it.
Okay, so I'll put it on the next agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, any other updates?
The Wastewater Committee is moving right along. We're proposing to bring an executive summary of kind of what's been going on. We're starting to get a little nervous about how voluminous the paperwork is for this. And at such point in time, it gets presented to the select board. If is a brand new subject that no one has looked at, it could be an incredibly long time to go through it line by line, discuss each thing. So I'm just giving you an update of a summary that's coming, and I would very much like to see select board members show up at one of the meetings just to see how the process goes. They're Mondays at 5:30 to 7, that we don't have a select board.
Do you want to invite us to a particular?
Well, if you do it, then you have to warn one. I just,
So what, next Monday you're having one?
yes.
Okay.
And I think I would very much like to see people be familiar with the process and to see all of the thought that's gone into it, so it doesn't get dropped on your lap as like, are you kidding me kind of thing.
That's at 5:30?
5:30, yes.
Okay.
So I will warn it. I mean, we're out later in the agenda warning a meeting for the tax rate approval.
Well, it's
And
the
that
same
could-
day.
Yeah.
At 7:30.
It could continue, or 5:30.
The date is 7:30, right?
Right, sorry.
Okay. We're getting a lot of stuff done here. Do you want to have the tax, how much time we need to discuss the tax rate?
When did you set it for?
We're thinking at
4:30.
Why don't you do it at 4:30 and be like 15 minutes?
4:30 on July 30th. And then at 5:30 a continuation to join the wastewater discussion.
Okay.
It's a week from today.
Question though, because I normally post the agendas for the wastewater. Does that mean I still have to,
I'll post it for select board.
you're gonna post a warning for the select board to
Yep.
join us then?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I won't need to post a warning. Okay.
Okay, moving on to the other updates. Okay, next thing, we're a little behind here. Your name is? Terrell. You're applying for Trails Committee?
Yes, that's correct.
Why don't you give us just a minute or two of your interest, why, and
Sure. I moved here recently, about a year and 14 months ago, and I've had a lot of experience with trails. I've worked with tourism most of my life, and on top of that, I volunteered for trails and built some long-distance trails in 3 countries. I moved here primarily for my family, and approached the Trails Committee, and I've attended their meetings for 4 or 5 months. And there's a big project going on, which everybody knows about. I said I could support in the back if there's some operational pushing to do, and I would be interested in developing longer-term plans. And my primary interest is to talk about, if there's an interest, developing trails at a lower cost, which are a little bit more integrated with existing infrastructure, with East Charlotte, but specifically more of the east where there's more gravel roads and more easy connections. I live on Prindle Road, and that's kind of our base.
so you've already been participating? You've already participating with Trails?
Yeah, I joined, I think, 3 meetings. Most of it's taken up with the Town Link Trail, so I've been listening and getting up to speed on that.
Cool. Is there a motion?
Motion to appoint Ajat Terial to the Trails Committee for a term ending April 30th, 2020.
I'm already on the Chess Committee.
The Trails Committee?
Trails.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Second
I
it?
teach at Chess.
Chess,
I teach at Chess.
If you want to start one.
No, I've already started it. Chess is the
Are
library.
there any more comments, input? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Experience you're going to bring. And I think there's been a lot of focus with us, with trails, for the less expensive trails, because we did a very expensive, was it a V-Trans type grant that was turned down, which you probably know all about, but it got to be kind of off the wall here.
I would say that's my singular objective, is to make a long-term plan, maybe help present it in a year of how, if there's any future phases, how we can do it in a kind of a different way. The current project, to the side, will support it. It's already going forward. But what I've told Lori is 1/3 of my time I'm going to help you, and the rest of we're going to look at. I would like to help with future planning. So thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that filling a vacancy or a,
There's currently a vacancy.
that's
right?
the vacancy on our list here, okay. Thank you.
I just want to say that it was really great when Jot moved to town with his wonderful family, and I was like, yep, I've done trails in several countries. I was like, wow, guess what? We've got trails here in Charlotte too, and it's been
Thanks.
a great asset.
One day. I think I met a couple of you, but I'd like to meet everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Jeff Kickness,
Hi, Jeff.
why don't you come forward and introduce yourself and tell us why you'd like to be on the rec committee?
Jeff, I already know about you guys. I was approached by Rich Aarons a couple weeks ago after helping him plan and start to build the attendance shed down at the beach.
Oh.
And, as that project has continued to progress, he mentioned that there was an opening on the rec board and suggested that I do it. It wasn't something I had really thought about or sought, but the more I thought about it, it started to make a little bit of sense to me, and sort of that old adage, be part of the problem or be part of the solution. Not really suggesting there is a problem, but, I guess if anything else, I want to earn my right to complain about what I don't like about it. So maybe I can be part of the solution,
So Bill, you endorse this candidate?
Absolutely not. No one's ever said that, have they? No, it's a pleasure. I've worked with Jeff in the construction, and we talked about, him joining the commission, and it seems like a really good fit, Be good to have him.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Jeff Gigness to the Recreation Committee for a term ending April 30th, 2020.
Second.
Any further discussion, comments?
Just to let you know, this is replacing Jan Schwartz.
Oh,
Jan Swartz, okay. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, congratulations, thanks for volunteering.
Yep.
thank you.
Approval of contract computer network support and replacement for server. So, go
Accuse
ahead.
myself for this, for the potential conflict of interest.
Okay, so Dean, refresh, because we've selected tech group.
Right, you selected tech group contingent upon me checking
Oh, that's right,
references. I did check with several towns and talked with 3 of them. 4 of them, or another town also left a message that they had very good experiences with tech group. So I would recommend, or not recommend, but I think the approval stands.
Okay, thank you. Now, you're talking in your notes about change the term from 8/1, so that's August 1st, to 7/31, so that puts it in it's not on the fiscal year.
Well, no, initially they proposed a 1-year contract, and I just asked them to make it until June 30th, so that it renews on the fiscal year, and then after that, it can be a 1-year contract.
Okay.
There's, one of the services that SimQuest provided is a spam filter, and so that will go away, so we will need a spam filter. Tech Group does provide that at $45 a month. That can be a separate standalone approval. It wasn't included in the RFP. The existing spam filter will continue through August, so we'll need something starting September 1st.
So you have that on the next agenda?
Next agenda.
Do we need to get more than one bid, or what,
Oh, well, $45 a month.
600, less than
Yeah.
$600 a year?
But yeah, I think we could shop around a little bit and see if there's other services.
Okay, Christina?
A couple questions. When we switch over our email, which we had discussed about doing Microsoft 360 or 365, does that have a spam filter in it?
I don't know the answer. I can check.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was something that we had thought about doing, was switching over to that anyways, so
Yeah.
that might eliminate the need for the spam filter.
Okay.
2, on the contract, you had them add in service to copier and scanners.
Right.
I'm questioning that because we actually have a service contract with OSB for ours, so I was wondering what copiers and scanners you were including in on them, because
Yeah,
OSB
no,
does all our stuff.
they know about the service contracts, but basically everyone's computers need to talk to the copier printer. So if there's an issue with them talking to each other, that's where they would come in.
Okay.
Okay, so you'd like a motion from us then?
Yes, and then as far as the server goes, they said they need to be on our system, get to know it before they can make a specific recommendation for the server. They were, they did provide a bid for the server, so I don't know whether you want to approve those separately or approve it globally now, and then they will come in with probably a different specification and bid, which you could do as a change
Our
order.
intent was, based on our purchasing agreement, this is the deal.
Right.
And then if they're going to come in with recommendations, seems to me we could adjust at a later time. So this is fair and square to all
Right.
those that bid.
Yep.
So does this document, we ought to be able to have a motion on this document. I don't see that it's dated. How do we identify the document? Oh, it's an agreement. I guess you go to the first page. their agreement effective August 1st, 2018?
Right.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for the computer support and replacement of servers for the Charlotte Town Office to Tech Group for their proposal starting August 1st, 2018.
Is that seconded?
Second.
So just to be clear, there's two pieces. One is the managed services agreement, and the other is the replacement of the server. The document that starts August 1st is just the managed services agreement.
Yeah.
They did provide a bid for the server, which was in line with the other bids, so.
How do we identify that document?
That was their proposal, which was opened on June 25th.
After, when they get on the line, get on our system and figure out what we need, then they'll tell us.
Yes.
And I guess we have to approve it then,
Well,
right?
well, we've already approved it.
The whole point
Okay.
was the person that we choose, whoever you choose for your computer service is naturally going to be the one that is going to
To the server.
provide a new server, and
They might be cheaper. They won't
we've
know.
done this already. So it went out to bid, you got the bids back, you chose the tech group. They will be providing us with a new server. It's not like we're going to go shopping for another server from another company. This is done, we did it. You're approving their contract, and part of the service they're going to provide is a new server.
I think the last minutes were said that it was contingent upon them coming back with the recommendations checking out, with the references checking out, and that did, so.
Okay.
So do I need to amend my motion to include providing a new server? Yes. And to provide a new server.
No, we've already voted.
We already did all.
We've
I don't-
already voted to provide a new server. Basically, all we need to do is make a motion to
Approve the,
accept this contract and have it signed by either all of us or the
that's what it
chairman.
was,
Which we
just for
already
this
did
agreement.
approve all that,
Yes.
contingent on
Yep.
the good review, checking.
So we're
So we don't really have to
reaffirming
even
our
vote
approval
or
to be signed
reaffirm.
by
There
the,
you go.
Accepting their contract.
yes,
Accepting, there you go.
whatever,
So tell me what the motion is again then?
I don't know.
I was looking for the minute. So
I think you could just accept the service agreement. It's part of their bid, and authorize the chair to sign. That's the way it was set up.
okay.
So we're accepting the service agreement, authorizing the chair to sign from the previous approved motion.
Is that seconded?
Yes.
Any further comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. One abstention. Okay, we got that done. Okay, now we're up to looking at the 735 item, looking at the potential amendments to the agreement between the town of Charlotte and Charlotte Volunteer Fire and Rescue. So one of the things we had planned to do, until we want to get feedback, and that is the calculation of the surplus was one item that we thought we could get through. And I think, Patrice, you ran some examples of how to do that calculation. What is the opinion of folks with that Exhibit A to the agreement, which would identify a calculation process, which had been requested for a while? So we've come up with some words. The CPA from Fire and Rescue, I believe, made that recommendation. We had another recommendation from our CPA, but I don't ever think it got documented. So we're working on yours. So Mary, are you good with the words here, or?
No.
Okay.
So my question to you, to the board, is when you look at Exhibit A,
Yep,
that's what we're talking about, step 1, 2, 3, 4.
yep.
Would you be able to calculate the surplus? Where would you look? What would you look at?
Well, we have examples today that were released.
I wasn't able to pull mine off the computer. I don't have those in front of me.
I have a copy that you can look at.
The part that I didn't,
You have it.
Up on the screen.
And I don't necessarily need them right this minute. But
So you take the profit and loss statement, and this is the actual calculation, how it would be. So item A would be here, item B is your total expenses, and then you could follow it through.
Are we all gonna have a-
I personally think that the verbiage that Bill provided is in accounting speak. And
Right.
from a layperson standpoint, it may not be the best. So I think we could work on that language.
in fact, we've also sent an email to Rick Brigham, our CPA. He's a busy guy at this time of year, at the end of the fiscal year. So, yeah, to your point, I'm not sure we're ready yet.
Okay, so I think you were probably at a meeting that we had 3, maybe 4 years ago with Rick Brigham.
Yep.
Yourself.
Yes.
me,
Yep, Mary was
myself,
there.
Mary was there, and
Charles.
Russell was there because he was the sitting treasurer of the CDFRS. And Rick agreed with the process that we've been using.
Well, he came up with some words that never got, we lost the bubble there.
Okay.
So that's what we're going back, see what Mary's comments here was, and your comments. These are kind of wordy.
Right, and where I think CDFRS is in agreement that those are wordy, and that's why I populated in the Selectboard Dropbox examples in a proposed template, which actually takes those words and puts them into a format that is understandable to a layperson and points to where you get the numbers from. So using the profit and loss statement, which is interchangeable with an income statement, that's your basis.
Yep.
And you do it post-audit adjustments, and you fill in the formula.
The only thing I didn't understand was this equipment capitalized for the audited financial statements. And your example did not include that, the one I saw.
It doesn't include, but it shows 2 examples of items that were capitalized. So during the course of a fiscal year, there are items that are purchased and expensed through the operating account. When the auditor comes in, usually sometime in late August, early September, he reviews all those purchases. And there may be items that we, in this room, view as expenditures, that because of either the value or the life of them, the auditor chooses to capitalize them, put them on the depreciation schedule, and tracks them that way. There's a journal entry that occurs, which then reduces our expenses. So in order to true up what our true expenditures out of the operating fund were, those get added back in.
Okay. So you don't, okay, I understand. So you don't have an example yet.
Of this year's?
Yeah.
No, but prior years. So if you look at,
I only had one example to look at today.
pull up the
But-
one that was the Excel sheet. Were you able to pull that? Or the template? Yeah, okay. So,
No, I'll provide it for you. What's either, you should have a Dropbox thing.
So under this, it's 7,000.
So what year are you, you're looking at a different year?
This is FY17, fiscal year ending 6/30/17.
Okay, well, that's the one I have
Yeah,
printed
yeah.
out.
So if you look at the profit and loss statement for that year,
Yeah,
that's where total operating income was 718,000.
Yeah.
Total expenses after adjustments was 728,78. There were 2 journal entries that we add back in to true up the expenses, and
Yep.
those were
bunker gear that the auditor capitalized, and a maintenance contract because it's a 5-year contract. That brings your total expenses back up to 724. The difference between your operating income and your operating expenses was a deficit of $6,151.89. The end of fiscal year 16, so as of 6/30/16, the FY16 reserve fund balance, which sits on our balance sheet, was $32,973.90.
Yep.
The net change to the fund balance was a reduction of that deficit,
6,000.
bringing the operating reserve fund balance as of, it's not 60/30, it's 6/30/17, to $26,822. The 10% of the 3-year average is based upon our appropriations. If you look at the chart below, it shows you since fiscal year 12 what that appropriation balance was. Obviously, the 3-year average starts in 2014, which is when the MOA was put into effect, and what 10% of that was. So in this current example, the 10% of the 3-year average is $54,177. The 26 is less than that, so there's nothing due to the town. 2 years prior to that,
You've got 2 years
there
prior,
was
yeah.
an amount due to the town. It was $6,900 and change in 2015. So we actually cut a check back to the town for that amount. So the basis is always to start with the income statement or the profit and loss statement.
Does everybody understand, I mean, the basics of a 3-year rolling average and 10%, you know, that it can never exceed that number?
Which is what we agreed to in the MOA at the time of the writing.
Right.
Said the 3-year average, 10%, so that's the baseline.
What's a little bit confusing to us is that I think I suggest, if you go back and look at the minutes of the select board for, I think it was August or September of last year, we suggested that we do the MOA review.
Right.
It was well in advance of Mary's memo in November. We suggested it because I was new to the position. I saw the MOA and the opening paragraph basically says it's supposed to be reviewed every 2 years. So we made the suggestion to do it. And here we are, and we did review it in the spring.
January 4th, you and I,
Yeah,
Pam, Fritz, yep.
felt more like spring to me, but I guess maybe it was
Time goes by.
warm day in January or something. But
January thaw.
But we did go through the process of reviewing it, and so it just seems interesting that we're going to take a step all the way back and look at it line by line again. We're happy to do it. That's why we're here to answer questions.
Well, we never made any changes, though. We talked about it
Yeah.
in January. We did have Mary's letter, so we're really here to discuss it. And I'm thinking there's been a request to go line by line. So I don't know if we'll have any changes. There may or may not be. So I think it's a process that we want to do carefully because we haven't done it for a couple of years.
That's great. Let's do it.
Let's just ask, so regarding the surplus, we have an email into Rick for his comments to the current one. So we want to hear what that is back.
We absolutely want to hear from him, yeah.
Okay, so we're not ready to approve that particular change yet.
He wanted some examples, which I can send him, which
With these.
which are these, and Patrice has some recommended changes, I think, to the language.
Okay.
So maybe we want to send him that.
And you have some examples as well.
I sent him an email, and I also sent him a copy of my email that I sent to him back in 2015 when we were first discussing the MOA and how the language was kind of complicated and how could we simplify it. And I specifically asked him a question, and I attached a copy of the income statement so he could see what I was asking him. And he called me on the phone and he said, yes, I think that's reasonable. And that whole conversation and that whole email and everything totally disappeared.
Yeah.
So I copied him today. I sent him that email. And I sent him, actually, Patrice's, the 2017, which had all of her stuff there, the post-audit, budget versus actuals, the calculation of the surplus, and then a copy of the income statement from the audited financials for 2017. And I said, can you please look at this and just tell me, you know, what it is we should be looking at when we calculate the surplus? Is it good to use the budget versus the actuals? Is this a good calculation that they have, or should we, you know, look back at our conversation we had in 2015? So he has examples of fire and rescue, how they've been calculating it, and he has the question from back in the day when he said, basically it said, we are wondering if it would be a fair way to calculate the surplus each year by looking at the income statement, taking the total unrestricted town appropriation for the year, dividing it into the total unrestricted revenue to get the percentage contributed by the town. Then to look at the change in net assets and apply that same percentage to the difference. And
That was
so-
your proposal back then, I remember that.
Yep, and he talked to Fred, and the unfortunate thing is that it was a phone conversation for us, and then I relayed it to the select board, but nothing ever came of that. So,
So we're asking them again now.
yeah, just to clarify, like, what is best, we need to fix the language, and everybody should be able to sit down at the table with a pencil and look at whatever financial and come up with the same answer. And y'all can't do that right now.
Okay, so waiting for his feedback, yes.
Well,
Christine?
I had feedback from neighbors of mine, actually, that they want to be able to somehow look in this town report and see the numbers that they should be using to figure out what the surplus is, that all this hoopla is about. And I don't think it's as easy as opening up the town report and finding the numbers that you need to find, and it's definitely not in layman's terms. And when they asked me to do it, I kind of stopped and I looked at them and I said, I'm not 100% sure, I'll be quite honest. I said, we have worksheets at work that that I've tried to figure it out. So when I have neighbors asking me why they can't go to the town report, find those numbers and come up with their own, I can't answer that question for them, so.
Well, the adjustments aren't, I don't think, in the statements.
Right, and that's part of it's confusion for the citizens out there if they want to do their own research and figure it out without attending all the meetings.
And the financial statements that are in the audited balance book commingle all the funds. So just to say that we should take the unrestricted column and do that calculation, there are funds that are not restricted.
Right.
Aside from the operating account that reside in a separate bank account, such as the members.
We have four special, the special funds.
Yep.
Yep.
So Barrows is definitely restricted based upon that trust. But fire special funds and rescue special funds, which are donations from, like, Dick goes out and takes a cat out of a tree. Somebody writes us a check and says, thank you so much. That goes back towards the volunteer members.
Okay. So right now, we're going to leave this, that we're waiting for the feedback.
Yep.
And then what I'm going to suggest is we go line by line. Let's spend the time we have tonight. And then what we've done in the other, some other ordinances we've met at 6 o'clock and just go through 6 to 7, an hour's up, you come back 2 weeks. This way, everybody gets step by step, everybody gets their comments, and then we'll have a draft, and you take it to your board and our board, and this might take a couple of months, but it'll serve, I think, the purpose of doing what's expected by everybody.
Okay.
Are we not going to do the spill or pay thing first?
I wanted to do the hazardous ordinance tonight,
Okay.
and then see how much time we have left in our plan let's set aside an hour, actually. So I want to do the hazardous materials ordinance, talk about that, and then the next regular select board meeting, meet at 6 o'clock, and then we'll go through, if we have time, we can start going through Mary's letter of November 30th, of which many of those things have already been resolved. We can start either that now, after we do the,
Can I ask a question?
yep,
So given the fact that this process may take a while.
Yep.
And understandably, to do it right, to have the input of everyone and the audit committee, et cetera, would it be feasible to have an addendum to the MOA that can be achieved more or less immediately to address the hazmat situation, so that if there's a spill
good point,
next week,
good point.
revenues aren't lost and it's handled the way it should be handled.
And it's not just the revenues lost, it protects us and the community and junior.
Good point. So why don't let's just do that now and see where it stands. We have a question.
Also,
Yep.
I have some updates on the board on purchases, and I need a clarification on one of our, I will purchase, I'll explain when we get to it.
Okay, so everybody good with going to hazardous material? You have some comments, Robert?
I have a question. I have a comment on Exhibit A, or the operating surplus period. Why do we, I didn't like it in 2014 and 15, I still don't like it today. Why do we even have that part?
Okay, then I'll go through the line by line. When we get to that section, so there's the principle of the surplus, and then if the two boards agree it's appropriate, then the form of calculation can be agreed as well, or whatever way we vote. So we're going to
happen this evening.
No, it's not going to. We're not going to get to it tonight. We're going to do the hazardous material ordinance first. 2 weeks from tonight at 6 o'clock, we'll start going through line by line of the agreement. Everybody gets their inputs. Then we can have a red line draft, and as we progress, you can take it back to your board, our board will have a position, and we'll just move along like we've done the other ordinances. It's going to take some time, but it'll be a thorough review. Okay, why don't you speak to us, the background, or Fritz, whoever has this. The hazardous material ordinance is important, as you were about to say, so who wants to speak to it?
We'll leave it to the chief.
Okay.
Well, the idea behind most communities around us having this ordinance, it puts a little teeth in our recovery of expenses or losses to the hazardous material, the truckers running up and down Route 7. If you're worried about the gas store at the railroad, you don't want to know what's going up Route 7 on a regular basis. We have historically billed incidents like this. Sometimes we recover our costs, sometimes we don't, because we don't have any teeth behind it. The biggest reason for this is a few years back when the fire in Heinsberg and Saputo destroyed almost $250,000 of CDFRS's gear. The insurance companies within days were telling me to replace all these items because they knew they had an ordinance behind them where they could chase after Saputo to recover their costs. Excuse me. Right there. Someone's always talking on that thing. Voices in my head. But the idea of this gives us a little backing. It also gives us backing if I have to call in Junior or a private contractor, because last year you had the Rover up in Jericho get some items that shouldn't have been there. And if you have this at the school and we have to call in private contractors and we have to have security around the clock on these items, someone's got to pay the bill. And I prefer not to come out of our taxes in the long run.
So what is the framework of this that's being presented to us, the data that's in this? Did you create it? Is it adopted in another town? Is it a good reference?
This was similar to, I don't know, probably more than a year ago, Dean, we sent this to,
Well, Heinsberg, I think.
it was Heinsberg's.
Heinsberg and Winooski
And
were the ones that this is similar to begin with.
We just kind of changed it to work for Charlotte, and our council said that in order to use the town's authority as an ordinance, that we have to designate the fire department as the hazmat responder, which allows them then as the contractor to respond for the town. So that's the,
hazmat responder.
so hence the reason to change the MOA is because in our scope of work, we don't say that you are the hazmat responder. Once we change the MOA to say that, that gives them the ordinance teeth, because the town says, this is our ordinance, this is our responder, they're responding on the town's behalf, so you're in violation of our ordinance. It gives the ordinance, it ties the organization, the fire department, to the town. Because without having that written relationship, as I understand it, it's not, doesn't work to have the ordinance. You can't say it's violated because we don't have anybody that's responds.
What happens if we just accepted this as an ordinance for the town, because it names Charlotte Volunteer Fire and Rescue Service here?
Well, this,
It's a simple two-word add or three-word add.
Just add attachment B kind of thing?
Attachment B to the
yeah,
level of service.
because this can be our ordinance, but it's not with our agreement.
If you
The
look at
MOA.
section 3
Okay.
of the MOA,
Yep.
where it refers to, as Dick said, level of service, changes in service, even if we had, it refers to A, paramedic, B, vehicle extraction,
Yep,
C,
yep,
ice
yep.
rescue, we add an F, section F, which is hazardous material incident management.
And if we're gonna pass this tonight, shouldn't we have this in here as
Right,
well?
I think so. I think
That's why
yes.
Tom suggested you do an addendum to this document, and
Yeah.
it just gets attached to the back, so you don't have to get the
Just
whole
for-
thing signed off on.
So tell me what your words were, because your words are a little different what the title is. Call it, what did you say for
Hazardous material incident management, is that
Yeah.
good for you?
hazardous
Material incident management.
material incident? Your last word was management?
Management.
Okay, so what we could do is make an amendment without disrupting the MOA
Right.
to include section 3, paragraph F, hazardous material incident management is one of your levels of service, and then we have to approve the ordinance as a part of that, and the whole board signs this. Does this ordinance have to have any kind of hearing, or?
Well, it's not a hearing, but there is a notice requirement, so it's not effective immediately. I always actually want to refer to the attorney just to make sure
Okay.
that notice gets done correctly. So it might need one more hearing just to make sure, or one more meeting to finalize it on the 13th of August, just to make sure that that notice is
But we
done.
could adopt it pending,
You can, I believe, you can approve it, and I'll check with him tomorrow.
okay, pending
Confirmation
council
and
legal
notice.
approval.
Yep.
Okay. The wording of the ordinance, anybody have any issues with that?
I just have a couple,
Okay, go ahead.
small ones.
Yep.
Section 3, third line down in the middle, to strike the S from the word founds.
Yep.
So to read into all persons who may possess such materials found within.
Yep.
Yeah. Hold on just a second, Matt.
Yep. Section 3, third line down,
Yep.
to strike the S in founds.
Okay.
Section 4, subsection A, second line on the left, to have that be an and/or. So it could be just a quantity, just a state, or just a form. It could be and all those threes. It could also be and or all those three. It just covers a little more.
So,
Which and or,
Just under the word hazardous.
the first one?
Yep. And or form. And then subsection B, I would, just like in subsection A, not having the word hazardous material in the definition after the colon, so it'd be person colon and then strike the first three words. So it would read any individual, corporation, or other entity.
Okay, yep.
Same with
So,
subset.
okay, so the first three words, person shall mean, get rid of that, capital A for in any.
Yep, and the
Okay.
same for subsection C, take out the second possession. So possession, colon, capital S, shall mean to possess, own.
Yep.
And we've been doing this since I came on the board with the binary gender language, taking out his or her at the end of that first line and inserting there, so it includes any human. Subsection, section 5, second line, just the, what is it, the brackets for the S, material or materials.
Oh, you mean, could be plural.
Yes.
So you want to put a parentheses
The person or persons in possession of any hazardous material.
or materials.
Yeah, materials, either,
Okay.
that becomes either or. And then when it says 911, there's an and. I would insert additionally, just to make that clear.
Where is that?
The second line from the bottom of section 5.
Okay, and you want to do what?
And additionally, if over 2 gallons, they'll contact the Vermont Department.
They do. Right.
It's going to be obvious if it was 30.
Is
But it
that a
was more
number
than
from the statute?
Where'd you guys get 2 gallons?
Is 2 gallons by statute?
Yes.
And usually when you talk to the hazardous material response team, like for Bunny, is there a large noticeable sheen going down the brookway? And if it's a small noticeable sheen, they know they can't do anything with it, except if you've seen on the roadways near some of our accidents, we put booms up to stop the flow for continuing. And if it's a large spill, that's when you see where they're digging it out and all that. The small spills, they just, once the state team takes over, they push either the insurance company or there's a spill. If there's not a responsible insurance company, there is a spiller fund in the state that we've all basically paid every time we buy our fuel, that say if your fuel tank ruptures in your house and you don't have insurance for it and they've got to dig stuff out, that's where that would kick in.
Got highly used during Irene as an example.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the definition of what's hazardous?
That's a, is there,
Where I was looking here.
I don't think it's salt, but.
right here it says department under section 4A,
Designated entity shall be.
materials listed as a hazardous chemical substance in 20 VSA, paragraph, blah, 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 and it lists them all.
Do we have a copy of that?
It's online, you can look them up.
What's the statute?
It's just weird. So the goals of the town or the designated shall be to respond promptly. It is right, it's just
Looks like 49.
Title 49?
written.
But that's federal code.
Written poorly.
Well, then what's the VSA? That's 20.
20.
You have a copy, hard copy? You're finding a couple more changes, Matt?
I don't think so.
Patrice?
Actually, I'd like to make a suggestion. Because current statute says it's more than 2 gallons,
Yeah.
so that this document lives beyond any changes that may happen in Montpelier, I would suggest changing that to say if it exceeds that amount specified in statute, so that way if statute changes, you don't have to go back and change this document.
But 2 gallons is meaningful for us to read it, or, what you say, if over 2 gallons, or as specified by statute, something like that.
But what if statute changes and it says if it's more than 1 gallon, then your statement is inaccurate?
Well, somewhere, I think in the beginning it said state and federal trump this.
It's all in section 4A. Accordance with Transportation Title 49.
It's your ordinance, but I'm just saying that if things change in Montpelier, you're gonna have to go back and somebody's gonna have to remember
No, section,
to change it.
section 3, application.
Oh, except as state or federal law?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a regulation may take precedence.
There you
and
go.
authority over any such incident.
Okay, that was good.
Doesn't make it outdated, so.
Right.
No, the town, we're low on the totem pole.
Yep,
Okay,
that's normal anyways for state statutes.
That's great.
so,
Uh,
I don't know. No, what, I wouldn't, no,
No.
not if you're gonna pollute.
It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be exempt because it's an environmental hazard.
One of the signatories will change, we'll add Frank.
Okay,
I think this was an older draft.
yeah,
Like I said, it's been a while since I've done this.
that's a good catch.
The date. Can't hurt.
The effective date, which is whenever we decide.
Oh, yeah, effective date should be 2018. Is that what you just said?
Yep, but sometime then.
In section 7, second line, do you want that to be an and/or as well? Because there could be a situation where town departments, in addition to the designated entity, are presenting bills to somebody that has spilled hazardous materials. So with it just saying that it's the town or, it doesn't give you the flexibility to actually both entities bill.
Change or to and.
I would change it to and or.
Yeah, I think it. Unless anyone objects, I think that's stronger language.
Yeah.
Same thing on the second to last line on that. Town of Charlotte, and it should say and or designate. And they may be.
What section?
Same, section 7, second line from the bottom. The or in between town of Charlotte and designated entity
Okay.
should be and or is it, instead of just or.
And where was the previous one? Just above that? Okay, got it.
Second line
Yeah,
from the
got
top.
it.
But these should probably combine them.
And then just to clarify,
But these should be part of-
in which situation would somebody receive a waiver instead of being charged the penalty?
And what section is that on?
Section 8?
It's the second sentence. Is that in VSA, or is
I
that,
think that's typically like a traffic typic type of thing. If you pay instead of contesting, you get a reduced fee. So that,
So that's where you do your waiver, that would be a
like a spill?
town constable kind of ticket from the town of
Yeah.
Charlotte thing.
you agree to pay and you don't contest it.
And that's 800, 500 instead of 800 per offense.
I don't have paper copies, I'm just wondering who's going to be enforcing this thing.
I mean, is that really a waiver though?
Town is
I mean, a waiver would be you don't pay anything. To me.
Discount, yeah.
Should that be zoning administrator?
Spillage. They would probably be first on the scene, CBFRS.
For the purpose of
I was thinking
enforcement of this
about that,
ordinance.
somebody's got like a leaky furnace and the oil, kind of spilling out or whatever.
That's
Health officer would be the one to get
Nine.
that. That's
They might get notified, but then they should be notifying us.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I do see situations where the health officer or the zone might be called because of our
Well, that's what I was-
spat, Thompson's point about the rusty fuel tank that wasn't an issue.
That's what I was thinking, that's why I was wondering, like, poor Dean, he'll be getting phone calls for every little thing. Most of the time, they'd normally call the zoning guy, because he's also our health officer, so.
I can see the health officer getting caught under this, I can see my phone ringing, my customers, but the plus outweighs the minuses at this point.
And where does this go?
do you mean?
Where does the fee go?
Fee is, if it's a town ordinance, the fee should go to the.
General fund.
Okay.
Just in that section 9.
Where does the money go?
To us.
General
I
fund.
mean, if the fee goes to the town, then,
The fee goes to the town, the billing funds go to whoever is billing to recover their costs.
so would the enforcement part be just the town, or,
Yeah.
or, because it says chief,
I'm not
or,
Well,
going
and
to
then-
take it.
because it says CVRS and chief, or their designee, or any police officer or sheriff, I mean,
Issuing, that means I would also, and I would try to push it to your constable, but it gives me the authority to say, I'm gonna fine your ass if you don't clean up this mess or something.
And if it gets contested, then it goes to court. It's
Yeah.
not,
Did you
we don't
change
knock
the
on people's doors.
Add constable to that.
Yeah, right, that's what I was thinking.
constable?
Also,
It would help to have the town constable, yeah.
in that sentence, for the purpose of enforcement of this ordinance, I'd switch the next word "this" to the issuing municipal officials.
Right.
The ordinance. The issuing, oh, like
Yeah, the issuing
a
municipal
town
officials are.
constable
the-
adding that.
And maybe
goes in-
instead of "are," we could do "may." Maybe, because it's not gonna necessarily be all of them. "Are" kinda,
Maybe we should put select board chair in there too, huh?
yeah, hey. So we,
Is there by chance an extra one of these documents? I guess not. Really?
You can read mine.
you okay with that?
I actually
I'll
asked,
peek at-
Frank, did you change anything under section 8, say fees come to the town general fund? Did you add anything there?
I didn't, it just doesn't state where they go, that's
Well,
all.
we just had a sentence.
Do you have a,
Good, or-
I know we don't have many town ordinances, but do you have a guideline where municipal fees, or not fees, but penalties go?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, most of them are zoning violations that go to that are handled by the zoning administrator.
Yeah.
But I mean, you do have it in here, or it goes from goes to the zoning administrator. I'm just trying to make sure that, I mean, if you're,
If it's a town ticket, it's one way or the other, it needs to go to.
Well, the
town.
police, we get income from
Percentages.
license, or from fines on the road and stuff. That just becomes a source of income. Yes, Christine?
So typically, when something like this happens, you guys call in a construction company, they take care of it, they send the town the bill. Does the town then, like with Thompson's wastewater with the hookup, are we then billing the person that maybe caused this? Or is that a judgment call that we bill them out for the cleanup?
We work with the state when there's a major incident, and the state pushes them to bring private contractors in to deal directly with the person, so there doesn't have to be a middleman. At that point, when the private contractors take over, CVFRS backs out. We're there to protect life, property, and environment until the private contractor takes over. At that point, we will bill them for services rendered, materials used, and try to collect to the point to bring it back into the.
Right, so you guys will bill for your services.
Yes.
The hope is the private contractor will bill the homeowner or the truck owner or whatever. So really, I mean, like a fine is gonna be you guys finding something out per se that hasn't been addressed. It's not gonna be like a big truck rolling over out there, because if a big truck rolls over on 7, it's pretty much taken care of.
Yeah, it's massive.
Right, so the fine,
adds teeth to more to you guys than.
Right.
or I
the
would
fine
be.
is gonna be like a violation, somebody's got,
Right, but that
oil
needs to be
tank.
billed from the town, not from
The fine,
CVFRS.
Right, okay.
That would be a municipal ticket, I think, for,
Okay.
that's the way we're looking at that.
Yeah, I was just trying to clarify the
Right.
chain of
Right.
cost, how it went down, so that's, knowing that the contractors would go to the people that caused it.
Yeah.
And what's the process that the town will be notified that this has happened?
That's in the MOA, that we're to be notified I believe it's within, it says 2 working days of any incident. I believe it's in the MOA of any situations. I gotta find it.
Do you mean of the ordinance being adopted?
No, if a spill occurred and they were getting a fine from the town, how would the town know to
I think
send
we
a
have to
bill? And
create a form for that.
You'd have to have a form, you'd have to, again, I see your
Or
fine
communications.
as more, someone calls up Matt or Lane and says, my neighbor's dumping oil on the roadway regular basis, or he's dumping it on my fence line or something like that, and you go tell them stop and clean up your mess, and they don't want to, or it doesn't rise to an emergency, and they tell you no, well, now you've got some teeth behind you to start giving them some incentive to clean up their mess. I don't see me out on the roadside writing a ticket to the poor guy that just rolled his truck over, or the homeowner that lost a fuel tank. We're trying to recover the costs and the lost equipment that we might have in these incidents, so.
What's the schedule of charging for that? How do you do that?
Right now, the county fire departments have rates that is average between a group of them, for apparatus or manpower. And then we're also billing expenses as they are. If I have to replace
Foam.
half a dozen pigs or foam or something like that.
So you can recoup the cost of the foam.
Yes.
You can recoup the cost of a hose or something that was
Yes.
damaged.
Yes.
And there is a standard rate or a replacement value, and that's
Well,
already,
there's a rate for the apparatus.
what do you mean by the, what do you mean by the apparatus?
Apparatus and one operator is $275 an hour. Each individual person beyond that is $27.50 an hour. The ambulance on standby, because it's been taken out of service, is $250 an hour to include the apparatus and the 2 people on the apparatus.
That's all on a schedule somewhere
Yes.
that somebody
Yes,
can see.
And that's, on top of that, we bill any expenses.
Now, what if, I'm thinking of my brother-in-law's truck on the corner end of State Park Road. There was multiple departments there.
And
So-
they are billed through CVFRS, just like we are billed for like the one that rolled over in front of the tack shop. So,
So in that situation, Robert, where the incident occurs in Charlotte on Charlotte roads, and Ferrisburg, Heinsberg, or Shelburne, or all of the above come, they submit to us what their manpower was for that. We include that in the bill, and when we receive the monies, we pay them back for their services. But not until we receive money. So if...
In that instance there, the lady with the insurance didn't have enough insurance to cover all of it, so then they came back after my brother-in-law and him.
we originally billed to the commercial carrier, which should have a policy covering what they're hauling. After we found out there was not enough insurance money from the person that caused the accident, we did not push any further on the commercial carrier coverage. So, like I said, I'm not out to hang people in town. I just don't want another Saputo. And now, as a taxpayer, we're spending $1 million to replace shit that someone else should have.
Okay.
And also, most commercial carriers, as you know, have a rider in their policy because of what they're carrying. They pay this hazmat standby and this cleanup, and that's pretty much right across the board. So it's money coming back in for our costs.
So, see if you agree with this, Dean. You have any more I wanted to tell you how I would do this?
Well, there's just the one with the officers, the officials.
Correct that.
For the purpose of enforcement of this ordinance, the issuing municipal officials may be, and then it gives permission to the following.
We changed that to me, okay.
Okay, did we?
Yeah, I
just
did.
wanted to make sure everyone heard that. And
So-
then the last part, the last of that sentence, any police officer, sheriff, or constable. Right?
Yep.
I put in constable before police officer because we only have a constable, so I
We
said,
have 2 in our authority.
You're allowed to have a second constable.
Right.
So
Okay.
you just change that to any law enforcement
Okay.
official.
Okay.
That's even easier.
Yep.
Any law enforcement official?
If it covers the state police, it'd be a contractor to patrol the area too.
Right.
So
And
that's
the
okay.
zoning administrator.
Any law enforcement official? Okay.
Loosely defined, right?
So, another question? Yeah. Jen.
This is a wording thing under section 2, general purpose, and the first sentence, does it need, I'm just thinking it might need more detail. Right now it says, it's the purpose of this ordinance to provide for the orderly and expeditious control of the person or persons having control over hazardous materials. And I sort of feel like having control, I know it's explained later in the ordinance, but would it be good to use words like storing, possessing, using, transporting in that sentence? And then as it continues, it says that, and thereby pose a threat to the town of Charlotte. I was wanting to, or feeling like maybe it should change to after hazardous materials within the town of Charlotte. I was just having.
Well, pose a threat could be a spill in a river that's not in our boundaries, but could be, as the words are here now, it ultimately could threaten the town, even though the spill could have taken place.
Charlotte as a town or as a government
And the
entity.
other thing, the person having control over the hazardous materials, not just the person in possession, is Joe, what's-his-face, sends the 18-year-old kid with the pickup truck with a bunch of junk in it, and the 18-year-old kid dumps it on the side of the road. Now you're trying to make the 18-year-old kid responsible, or the guys who's actually have the responsibility for this material.
So I think we're saying we like the words. Okay.
I just have I gotta stop myself. Section 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down, between the limited to and compensating.
Oh, I saw that.
Pull the colon in one space.
Yep. So, Dean, when we make our, maybe if you're willing to make it matter, when we make our amendment here,
Yeah.
motion, so this should be, I'm looking at the last signed agreement, and it's 17 June 2014. It's called the First Amendment. So I think what we're about to do now should be a motion to approve the Second Amendment.
That's the MOA, right?
Well, we're going to have to change the MOA to accept section F. Let me go through it.
Right.
Got it.
So we're going to call this incorporating Second Amendment, this date, which is going to be 23 July 2018. And then you go to what Dick told us. You go to the section 3, you add, under level service, you add F, hazardous material incident management. Then I was going to say attachment A, and then attachment A is the hazardous material ordinance as amended. You guys follow that?
I think there are two documents, so I think you do need to approve the amendment, the Second Amendment. It does say under section 11 of the agreement that this agreement may be amended or modified by mutual written agreement of the parties.
So they'll have to vote on it as well.
Right.
Oh, that's okay.
And then you also, I think, separately need to vote on the hazardous materials ordinance.
So you want to do them separately
Yeah.
then?
I think the ordinance would have to
Okay,
exist.
so the ordinance is a town ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to approve the town ordinance as amended?
I'll make a motion to.
Go ahead.
We can have discussion I'll make a motion to approve the Town of Charlotte Hazardous Materials Ordinance, to be signed by all select board members
As amended this meeting.
as amended.
Okay. So is that seconded?
Second.
Okay, you had questions on this?
Yeah, I was gonna say that, I think the motion for the MOA amendment should very simply be that, because you just say that, you're amending the MOA to accept the hazardous material ordinance that was passed on this date, because your MOA is gonna change.
It'll be valid for about 3 months, and then we're gonna have another amendment.
Right, and so I think instead of getting into all these amendments and whether it's 1, 2, or 3, just you're amending the MOA to accept the hazardous ordinance material.
Well, and to change level of service in F.
I don't personally,
Right,
I
right.
don't agree with that. I think we ought to have a clear flow of amendments to this. So I would say this is going to be Amendment 2 tonight, which you have to confer.
Right.
And then 3 months from now, we're going to have Amendment 3. I think we should do it that way. Because we may get delayed, we never know what's going to happen.
On the
Yeah.
hazardous materials ordinance,
Yeah,
I just wasn't clear if Jenny had suggested making a change to section 2 to make it within the town
we
versus.
said not to change that.
Not to change that, okay,
Defined reasons.
okay,
2 examples we had.
all right.
The 18-year-old versus the name of the adult or the company. And then comments, had to
Yep.
pose a threat to the town of Charlotte. Okay, so we have a motion that's to accept the ordinance. Any other comments?
Do we want to make this subject to legal review, or did they already check this out?
He did review it. I don't think the edits that are proposed are really
Okay.
legally substantive.
All right.
So I think he's probably okay.
Okay. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. So now the second part
So,
is adopting this into the agreement with fire and rescue.
Well,
What do you
I
think?
think, well, semantically, I think we can endorse, we could have a motion that endorses the inclusion of this ordinance into this document, but we can't actually, it can't legally be adopted until both parties agree to
Correct.
it. So the select board could somehow say that we are endorsing adding it, but it has to be mutually agreed upon, and they have to wait for a board meeting to do that.
Unless you do it as an addendum.
We can add addendums
Why don't we say,
unmutually, and it still has to be,
Why don't we-
Approve an addendum on
oh, okay.
well, why don't we say approve it pending the other party?
Right,
That's
that's
what
what-
we do tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Right, and approve just the addition of F.
that. So.
But you guys agree to make this the next amendment, and we're all? and-
sure, amendment
Yeah.
number 2.
Amendment number 2.
Just for clarification.
Yeah?
The CVFRS board will approve the second amendment,
Yeah.
and the only change to that is under level of service, we're adding item F.
Correct.
Yes, section 3F, which will say hazardous material incident management, and then in parentheses, attachment A, which is the ordinance.
Do you have that written down, or does?
I do.
Does Kathy?
Or attachment A,
Material management, and attachment A.
and we should identify attachment A is Town of Charlotte Hazardous Material Ordinance. So we can make a motion, and then, what were the words you said, Frank? Pending,
Pending
The other party's
approval from the,
okay.
Now, it looks like incorporating the First Amendment in June 2014 only required the chair to sign as the duly authorized agent. So are people comfortable doing that again?
Okay. Okay. So have you made a,
Yeah, it looks, okay, great. So we'll make the motion second and then more discussion if people want.
we haven't done the motion yet. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so make a motion to approve an agreement between the town of Charlotte and Charlotte Volunteer Fire and Rescue Services, Inc., incorporating the Second Amendment to be in section 3, subsection F to read, Kathy, you have it?
Oh, that's, I'm sorry.
Hazardous.
Hazardous.
Material.
Material management.
Incident management.
Incident.
Incident.
Hazardous.
Reference attachment to
Right.
And parentheses, reference attachment A.
A, which is the name, I would write it out so there's no confusion.
And that's the hazardous
Yes.
material ordinance.
Yes. You didn't say anything about date, so it ought to be, so the date ought to be, it should be dated when it gets signed, I guess.
17.
I think you could probably use today's date.
Okay, that's fine.
There is a delay in terms of the effective date for ordinances, because it has to go into the newspaper, and it's not effective for a certain number of days.
Okay. But this can be
But we
dated.
can still make this.
Yeah.
So effective,
Oh, and authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the town of Charlotte as the duly authorized agent.
I'll second all that.
Thanks.
did you get the date in? 23rd day of
July
Aug-
2018.
in July 2018. Okay.
Thank you.
Is everybody on board?
Good.
Jenny?
Just one other question. I just was wondering if adding this to the level of service would mean extra training or equipment that the fire department would require?
It's a job we're doing already as it is, and hazardous material response, we're sort of like Ghostbusters.
The purpose of this is to give them the authority to do what they're already doing and levy fines. So they're doing the work, and insurance issues, this gives them the authority. Any other questions?
No, not the
Well, that's-
fines, but the charge for damages.
Yes.
The way they did write it, apparently.
Okay.
Record ordinance 22. You've seen how many I've written even for illegal burns over the years.
I've never had one of those illegal burns.
All in favor of the motion? Ready to vote? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
What do you approve?
The amendment to,
Okay, so there were other blue line items changed.
No, yeah, that was
No,
not
We're
approved.
not changing any of
we've
those.
only
So all
changed,
that's off the table.
We only-
I just wanted to-
Just F and the adoption of this attachment.
in a couple months, we'll have enough.
Trying to keep it simple. Sweep it all.
So go back to your original one that has signatures on it. And we only made changes to that original, but we just talked, section F.
I'll do a new job.
I'll have it in my inbox tomorrow.
Wow. This is awesome. This is a lot accomplished.
We don't have a quarterly meeting now, do we?
That's
We don't have a quarterly meeting now, do we?
Next. Next.
Okay, so we're gonna see you guys at 6 o'clock on the 30th. Or do we say 5:30? What did we say? Oh, no, I got confused on something.
13th.
The wastewater.
13th.
The next meeting.
Yep.
When-
There's another meeting on the 30th.
I got confused with the waste.
Yeah, the 13th.
Oh, yeah, waste and tax.
See you in 2 weeks.
Just show up on Mondays, Lane, that's how it works.
Okay.
That's what I do. If somebody's gonna be here on Monday, it's either the wastewater or the select board.
Yes, we are.
And then the 13th as well.
And if we do it.
So, a couple quick things before we walk away then.
You're the only thing on 6 o'clock. I mean, there's nothing before you.
One.
Oh, yeah, right afterwards, yes, the CVFRS.
Can't hear you.
Oh, just a second. Hey, Dean, what's the date of our next meeting?
August 13th, so CVFRS agreement, the agreement between the town of Charlotte and CVFRS is on at 6 o'clock, and then CVFRS end-of-year financials are on at 7:15.
It's the second, I'm totally confused. It's the second week of the month, so it is August 13th, our next meeting, 6 o'clock. Okay.
Next regular meeting, the select
Next
board
regular
is
meeting.
meeting on July 30th, July 30th for other reasons.
For other reasons, yes. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, nice and easy one first is I would request permission of the select board and how you want it done for disposal of the 1980 map within probably.
I want a little bit on.
That's fine.
What's your?
I I didn't actually follow what you just said.
We still had the 1980 Mack held in
Oh,
reserve. It's
truck.
actually been sitting in Fritz's garage. Thanks for him to get it out of the station. But I have not felt justified to getting rid of it until I knew the new truck was closed, just in case something happened.
Yeah.
But I want to request permission from the select board to do that. We'll bid it out.
Is that going to be advertised?
How do you want it done?
It's in a budget that you're gonna sell it, and I remember the number's $9,000, is that right? Is that
What's
right?
Scrap going for? Because I don't think Bunny's gonna bid a lot more than that, but he might.
So anyway,
Well, we can help you with that. You have the pumper, he has the ladder truck.
So we can post it on Craigslist, we can post it on eBay.
Where you want it.
that's part of the overall plan. We don't need to make, do we need to make a motion or anything? It's part of your plan. It's in the budget that you're gonna get something for it.
Something for it.
See if you can meet your target.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay, the second one, we've gone through our air pack process. We've
Oh.
identified a vendor.
Okay.
We did go out for 3 bids.
Okay.
We had one that was a little lower than the middle bid, but he wasn't providing everything for us. I've got a recommendation here from the Air Pack Committee, which was Devin St. George, Trevor Denton, and Zach Trono, the young guys that wear this stuff. We ended up going with, I would call them the middle bidder, but they actually, in a package deal, gave us a better overall of what we were getting, and I've got all these here. But with that, I didn't clarify exactly. We could get in the package deal. Nowadays, we need to monitor not just the gases we used to, but they're asking us to monitor HCSM, which is hydrogen cyanide. So we need new meters for that, and that's part of the air monitoring. I almost said, well, that's part of the air pack package, but instead I'd want to put it to you that if I can roll this into the package and purchase these meters this year with the air pack and still be under the $220,000, it's going to save the church a lot because of how much they've cut us, $3,500 over me waiting to buy them next year.
Well, there was a article, if I can find it.
And that's why the wording wasn't real specific in the article. So that's why I'm putting it to you. And I'm also putting it to you since the select board has the authority to approve out of the special funds up to $50,000. You'd be approving no more than what was approved to be spent in the beginning, so it wouldn't affect the balance.
Well, let's be clear. We voted to approve air packs with bottles to replace existing air packs dated 1995, 2005, at the approximate cost of $220,000. To be paid for from the Fire and Rescue Reserve Fund. So what you just told me is what you want to buy.
The air packs and bottles,
It's all less than 220.
I know, but
So the second one would be a request, an approval out of the capital fund for the gas meters, which are shown as next year's budget item that we would get a year early because of the discount afforded by buying them at the same time with the air bags.
How much are those?
This year, that's what
I'm
they.
just curious the magnitude.
$3,500 for over.
Grand total?
No, they would be $9,000. The savings is $3,500 from buying them as part of the package or ordering them separately.
So I just need to know what you're going to spend, because at 5,000, you approve it. Over 5,000, we have to approve it.
Yes, it is over 5. It's the bottom line there, 9,000.
933.
So the air packs without those are how much?
The air packs without those, let me get my glasses, is $2,010, $180.
Okay, so your 2,000, so we approved 220,000.
Yes.
These are 210, and this is 9,000.
And also the imagers you approved are coming in at about $800 less than the $20,000 approved also.
So we have the authority to approve this.
Yes.
Yep.
And where is it going to, the money going to come from?
The capital reserve, part of what we didn't spend on the 220, or the 220 for the air packs and the 20 for the.
So what Dick's really asking for is to move items identified for next fiscal year into this fiscal year.
I got that, I'm just,
Because it's just, I beat the snot out of them.
let's see what Christina has to say.
I think it's great, you got a good deal, but you have to tread very carefully because the article that was voted on was for the purchases of air packs up to $220,000.
So we have
So,
a second approval for,
Right.
yeah, I think I think you got a great deal, but I think that this budget that you're spending out of, it's in next year's budget, but that hasn't been approved yet. And what was approved was air packs and bottles.
capital.
Yeah.
And you can-
Yeah.
It's from the capital reserve fund, it's not from the general fund budget.
Right, but the article itself specifically states what it was being
So you
spent
can't
on.
use that money per se.
That's not for the air pack money.
Okay.
I'm not asking for that, I'm asking for the
210,
9,000 out of
180.
capital reserve fund.
It would be a separate approval
A year.
to tread
A
carefully.
year early.
What's the
Yeah.
balance in the capital reserve fund?
It's not gonna change
No,
what you
it's
had
80,
predicted
it'll
because
be
I
80 or,
Okay.
it's diminishing, but it's not that diminished.
Oh, that's right.
They're saving money and they want to spend what they're saving.
Well,
Well, I
not
want
only
to spend what
that,
they're saving now instead of waiting until
it's
next
a
year.
25% discount. That'd be,
So I think we should have a
I don't
motion,
see anything wrong with that.
yeah,
but I think we should have a motion.
yeah.
Here, if you want to, since you're,
I'll make a hydrogen cyanide, was it?
it's a 5-gas meter and what they've added is high.
So Matt, why don't you guys look at the expenditure?
I'm sorry, it's a 5-gas, they're 5-gas meter and necessary calibrating items. The calibration station, the gases and everything. Because again, nowadays, they're telling us we should track the hydrogen cyanide at fires before we're pulling our air packs off. And that's part of the NFPA and everything that, the changes we get regulated under every year. So what it is, it updates them. They'll go on the truck and
So
we'll
do we
say
need to approve the air pack?
the
That's
air
already
pack
been done.
was done.
that was done at town meeting.
And that was done through a
Okay.
process, but I was just bringing that, we were able to bring it in and not change the capital reserve and ask for this, which would be part of my ordering package, just because the
I
volume of
understand.
purchase.
So anything between 5 and 50, we approve.
And it says a specific PO number that I can reference.
Okay?
Yeah, that's,
So I'd say make a motion from the capital reserve fund.
I'll make a motion to approve $9,335.25 from the capital reserve fund to be expended in fiscal year 19. I forget how they say it. For fire and rescue to purchase the PO number Altair 5X and GX2. The PO number Altair
Unless you wanna just-
5X
Altair 5-gas meter would cover your.
and GX.
Unless you want to call it an Altair gas meter,
Gas meters.
gas meters.
Could you just describe
Yeah.
what it is exactly?
When somebody reads the minutes, they'll have to know
Well,
what it
that
is.
gets convoluted, but
It's a 5-gas meter with the calibration station and the specific calibration gases that you need to calibrate these to make sure they're working properly.
so
Little
it's
plastic
the
box you
meters
roll up when
and
you walk in the
calibrating
building and it
equipment.
tells you if there's
If it
bad
makes a lot
stuff
of
in
noise,
it.
you see us back
If it
out.
beeps, you run out the
Has
door.
that motion been seconded?
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
I think the minutes might want a concise explanation, a monitor of gases for what? For,
The gases that we currently monitor, the CO, the oxygen level, the explosive limits.
Slow down.
Sorry.
CO, oxygen,
Oxygen,
Yep.
explosive
CH4,
limits.
methane.
Yeah, that would be under the explosive limits. And
So-
hydrogen cyanide, I think they're all written right there on that.
under, what's the
It's convoluted.
circumstances that
Sulfite.
you would use this?
All the
What's-
time, right?
When's the, when?
These gas meters we use every time we go to the unknown alarm in town because we can't see the gases.
Okay.
We would use them on these hazardous material spills.
Okay.
We've had to scramble and get as many of them as we can for propane leaks in large areas because now you're searching multiple homes with these things. So.
It's like the radiation ones at Fukushima, but for gases. So it's
Kind of, yeah. It's not a badge that tells you you've been exposed, but if it starts making a lot of loud noise, you might want to rethink your
procedure.
Yeah. Your career choice maybe.
The other thing
Could you
is
pass it on
that
and walk out?
after a structure fire, we go into overhaul. At some point, we want to remove our air packs because they're heavy, they're cumbersome, they're bulky, everything like that. We've been monitoring for carbon monoxide. Studies in the past have shown that there's more gases out there, and one of the big killers now is hydrogen cyanide. There's documented cases where a pump operator in Providence, Rhode Island was outside operating his pump. The winds changed directions, and he went into cardiac arrest from hydrogen cyanide, not even being in the ER. So we can now monitor for those with that gas.
And that's just that's a byproduct of burning material?
Okay, so we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I think the agreement, when they're disposing of equipment, it just says without prior select board approval. I know, it's kind of a general nodding of heads, but I just wondered if you want a motion just to make it official.
While you're approving that one too, then let's put something in for the disposal of our current air packs. I'm not sure what they're worth, but half of them are broken at the moment, but we're gonna try to get something out of them to go back to the community.
So what are the two items? Air packs, what's the other? The truck is what?
1980 Mac.
1980
Core
Mac.
charge for them that you can get back?
1980 Mac.
They changed the
And-
provisions, they're not even current.
And retired air packs.
Yes.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to authorize the disposal of those two items? 1980 Mack truck and retired air packs.
Sounds like a great idea.
I was
I'll
just
move
gonna say the same thing.
Beat you to it.
Okay, you got somebody second it?
Yeah, me.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Productive.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Everyone tomorrow.
What time is the meeting on July 30th?
So if you go down the 820 item, we're going to set the municipal tax rate at 4:30, which is a week from today, which is July 30th. So the next meeting, which will be 30 minutes at the most.
And then we're gonna.
4:30, July 30th, Mary suggested, and I think Dean suggested.
And then at
And
5:30.
then you may,
5:30 is wastewater,
Right.
just to have an experience.
One never to forget.
Huh?
One never to forget.
Okay. The next item in your packet is employee performance appraisals process. So this is the same as previous years with the updated names. Everybody want to look at this? Any comments? We're going to pray, the review will be Dean, Aaron, Daryl, Nicole. Oh, it's not Mary Recchia, it's Carol.
oh, sorry.
Carol,
Yep.
Carolyn, Peggy, Margaret, library staff, Callie, and Christina. So this has been updated with the names. We said, Dean, on process, on item 4, you want to change that. Committee members may sign this final appraisal form. Do you really mean committee members, or you mean employees?
Well, I think the committee members do. What I suggested removing was the employee. It seemed a little bit overkill.
The review committee.
Right.
That's what you mean?
Right.
So we could add the
Well, we had
word.
a situation where an employee just, he wasn't against, he just didn't want to sign it.
Yeah.
So we were trying to, I mean, you can't make somebody sign something.
No.
It says, so I,
Fire them if they don't.
and committee members and the employees, so you leave the
Without
and the employee
cost.
back here, may sign,
Well, yeah, but you want the committee members to sign.
right?
You'd have to change that.
So review committee members will sign the final appraisal form.
Yeah.
Employees
May.
may sign.
An employee may.
I mean, they didn't want to make a formal objection, but they chose not to sign it, so we can't. It's their right. Okay.
Wait, do we have to change the wording? Do we have
Yeah.
No, it was really
to
clear.
amend the process?
Well, the employee's signature does not imply agreement. It indicates that they've read the form and has had the opportunity to discuss its contents. It's really hard to see why that would be objectionable, but apparently it was.
We had a situation where the form wasn't signed. No. So we're, these, so the changes we're making is putting Carolyn in there. Committee members will sign, and employee may sign this final appraisal form.
It's a free
That's
mention.
fine.
Everybody good with this?
Now, on the bottom, they've crossed out select board under Christina.
No, we're not gonna do
No, we're not gonna do her.
I was gonna say, I'd like it to be removed, because.
Why don't we just remove you, period? That's a good
have
point.
been removed.
Because
I
my
agree.
job is, my boss is Mary.
Okay.
She's the one who hires me, she's the one who disciplines me. Meeting with you folks would be great if we were getting raises on a merit-based system, because you guys control the funds. But being that we're on the pay grid, my boss is Mary.
Okay, so
I don't know what else to say to that.
So we've crossed you out, that's good input. Any other changes? Is there a motion to approve this as amended?
Make a motion to
So-
approve the employee performance appraisal process as amended.
Second?
Any further comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have two sets of minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of June 25th, this may be amended.
Second it?
Okay. On line 122, it's Fraser Harris, not Harris Fraser.
Line 12, I actually wasn't at the meeting.
Line 12 is what?
I wasn't present.
Okay. Line 136. Let me just see if that, I didn't email Rob, but I emailed Nicole and Bill. Fraser Harris again. Just cross out Rob Mullen on line 136. I didn't take that on because he'd already been contacted. This is for that swim. And then change the Fraser Harris. And that's all I have.
Oh, and 135 discussion has a typo.
Oh, yeah, it's just. Want to leave it or take it out?
Just switch the, yeah.
Oh, spelling, got it. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. July 9th minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes from Charlotte Select Board meeting, July 9th, 2018 as amended.
Second.
I had one on line 145 for the Park and Wildlife Management Plan. There were, I think, all the sections that were reviewed were accepted.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I didn't get that either.
There were several sections that were reviewed,
What line?
145, 146,
Yeah.
147.
So this motion just says the management plan summary,
Right,
but really it's all the sections that were reviewed.
right.
So we're getting rid of the word summary?
Could you say all sections?
All sections?
Except,
I don't know actually what was said.
To accept
There
the
was,
revised
we
Park
accept-
and Wildlife Refuge Comprehensive Plan.
sections
But it was a specific section. It
as
was
discussed, no, there was like, I don't know, five or six. that
five or
went
six
over.
section. I think I said just as discussed, or, I mean, we're not going to.
Management plan sections discussed.
Yeah.
Management plan sections.
Yeah, because they're listed
Discussed.
above, so if you reference.
Oh, there you
them-
go, they're listed above. Or just say is listed above,
Yeah.
listed above. I had one. On line 100, Mr. Richardson stated that the issue of perpetually affordable unit is, what's that mean? Is too tied? What's
Is
that
to
mean?
be tied and encumbered.
No, is it tight? No, too
Restrictive.
restrictive?
Oh,
Is too, I don't know what.
yeah, I think that's right, it's too I think what was meant was too restrictive. So just put in the word restrictive,
Restrictive and encumbered.
restricted and encumbered. And then on line 101, nonprofits are used, I think it's
Yeah, I was
USED,
just looking at that, I think it is too.
Used.
Just gonna look at that one.
use to that. Okay?
That's a funny one.
Did we get that on line 108 or 105? It says next steps. Continue forward a packet of written materials to Ms. Spear and Mr. Higgins. Did we get those?
No.
Okay.
What was that topic?
108.
Oh, of the affordable unit?
Yeah.
It was in our, I think it was in our packet, wasn't it?
No.
What it didn't,
No. I know that there was an email
They were gonna do some stuff, and they didn't do
dated
it.
where, dated July 16th, there might be some Mike Russell response attachments that we didn't get. I don't know if that was part of that or not.
That email was tonight's proposed policy, but I'm not sure about other written materials.
Okay.
anything else?
I'm wondering on line 174, the amendment to the salary administration policy, it was primarily for the minimum wage, but I think there was one or two other tweaks, so I guess I'm just wondering about striking for minimum wage and just say to approve the salary administration policy amendment dated
Yeah.
July 9th.
Yep.
Do you need more material?
And it's here, not everybody signed it, let's see who hasn't signed it.
I don't think that.
If you did.
Matt and Fritz. Okay, anything else?
Sorry, yes. Line 254. The approval was for the notice of intent, so submission of a notice of intent for the municipal roads general permit. So submission of a notice of intent as amended for the municipal roads general permit.
So what word did you add?
I signed under my
I
name instead of on
switched
top.
it around, notice of intent, submission of a notice of intent first.
Did I? Oh,
I did that.
what do we do now?
Just sign it, that's fine.
In your place?
Sure.
Submission of a notice of intent,
Right.
and what do you want done to it?
They'll figure it out.
That's it.
Okay. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Is there anything else to be brought before the board? Is there a motion to?
Motion to adjourn?
Oh,
I'll second that.
Caught up.
You know what, I was just
All in
2
favor, say aye.
seconds. As you were walking up,
Adjourn.
I'm like, oh, it's.